Hi, I'm Heather and I'm 23 years old. 2 years ago, I married the person I love. Things were going well, even though my husband is from France. The only problem we had was understanding each other because of the language difference. I wanted to show my love for him, so I secretly started learning French to talk to him and his family better. My husband Frédéric and his mom, Avril, didn't know I was learning. I worked really hard and became pretty good at French. I felt confident that I could survive in France if I needed to. But I was too shy to speak French with my husband and his mom. It's scary talking to someone in their own language, especially if you're always around them. But I decided it was time to change that. I stopped speaking French with them because the whole point was to improve communication, right? It's a good thing I didn't start too soon because I found out something important one day that caused a lot of problems. Hi, Mom. How are you, son? Thank you for inviting me over on this nice Sunday afternoon. It was our pleasure, Mom. Hello, Mom. Hi, daughter. How are you? Thanks for having me. Oh, don't mention it. You know you're always wanted here. I brought some croissants and what do you Americans call them? Bagels. Yes, bagels and croissants for our afternoon tea. That's wonderful. Thank you. Come, sit down, Mom. The food will be ready soon. Did she make the food? No, I did most of the cooking. It's okay. Oh, thank goodness. When I heard this, I wondered what she meant, but I was too shy to ask. It was strange. Avril usually liked my cooking. Why was she saying that now? I thought maybe she just wanted her son's cooking that day, something familiar. Later, I heard her say, I don't like her cooking. Why didn't you take me to a cafe instead of inviting me here? Mom, we agreed to speak English so Heather could understand, remember? Oh, forgive me, dear. I was just admiring how delicious everything looks. I was surprised to find out it was my son who cooked. I wish it was your cooking instead. I love your food. I started feeling really confused. How could she say those mean things in French and then lie in English? I thought maybe I misunderstood, but I had a plan to double check. Don't worry at all. You should always feel free to speak your native language. Please, go ahead. I'll be okay. I decided to use the Google Translate app to record what she was saying, just to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding her. As we all sat at the table, ready to eat, what happened next really surprised me. I want us to talk about our plan. The time is coming. It's tomorrow, Frédéric. You need to be serious. The app, along with what I understood of French, confirmed that there was some kind of plan being discussed. But what plan? Mama, not now. I told you I'll take care of it. What are you going to tell her, Heather, sweetheart? Can you pass me the sugar, please? She doesn't know about the plan. I was just going to say I'll be out of town. Out of town? Why? I was so confused. While I kept looking at my phone to see the translation, they must have thought I wasn't paying attention. This made them less careful with their words, which was good for me as I was starting to see their true intentions. She's not very clever. Look at her on her phone. We can talk about this now, Mama. All right. What do you want to talk about? The plane leaves at 3 p.m. Will you be able to get away from her then? Plane? Get away from me? Why? I was really confused, but I stayed strong and didn't let on that I could understand them, so I could figure out my next move. Yes, Mom, I understand. I'll take care of it. I know how important this is. It's really important. If your great uncle doesn't see us tomorrow, he might give the house to someone else, like your cousin or aunt. We can't let that happen. Nobody should know about this house. Oh, Mom, you're funny. I just said that in English so Heather wouldn't suspect anything. Who, Heather? Yes. Oh, sorry, honey. I was just wondering who made this delicious tea. It's wonderful. Oh, that was your skill, son. I'm not as good at making tea as he is. Oh, dear, your cooking is fantastic. Fantastic in a bad way, Mom. She'll figure you out. She won't figure me out. She's not smart enough to understand us. I'm not sure, Mom. She seems to grasp some things. Let's find out. Heather, how much French do you know? At that moment, I realized I had to pretend I didn't understand anything, so they'd keep talking and revealing themselves. It was tough staying calm while being insulted, but I knew handling the situation was more important than getting upset. Oh, I'm still not good at French. I only know the basics like bonjour and comment au revoir. That's not enough, dear. You should learn more French. Yes, I will. Well, that works for Frédéric and me. We can gossip about you then. I'm just teasing you. Want more, Sherry? We would never do that to you. Isn't that what we're doing right now? Yes, that's what makes it even funnier. They laughed. While I kept recording with Google Translate, I also checked other apps, websites, and forums to verify what was being said. I got about 90% confirmation from these sources, confirming my suspicions. Now that I knew they didn't like me and were openly mocking me, I had to gather more information. As if their insults weren't already hurting. What I heard next shattered my resolve. As I was saying, this house is really important. We can't let anyone else know about it, okay? We need to keep it a secret because we could make a lot of money. We can't miss out on this chance. I'm glad we're doing this. And it's good we didn't tell my wife because I don't want to share the benefits. Me neither. Everything has to go smoothly. Your great Uncle Pierre said whoever contacts him first about this gets the mansion. So we have to go there before anyone else and start fixing it up. I can't wait to have a house in California. It's where I'll go to get away from my wife and life here in Florida. Sometimes I can't stand her. You're still young. You should be married to someone like her at your age. Come live with me in California. Have fun, enjoy yourself, and when you're ready to settle down, you can. Let's leave here. Mom, I think you're right. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I felt tears welling up. Excuse me, what's wrong? Is everything okay? Yes, I just need something from the kitchen. I couldn't bear to hear any more for the moment. I needed to compose myself and not cause a scene. How could they say those horrible things with me right there? Did they have no shame? I was so upset. I started pacing in the kitchen, and then I had an idea. When I saw my mother-in-law's purse on the counter, I decided to take her phone. Luckily, it was unlocked. I opened her WhatsApp and sent Uncle Pierre's number to myself. Then, I quickly deleted the message from her phone to cover my tracks. It was like I was acting on instinct. I didn't even know why I did it, but I'm glad I did because now I had a plan to get back at them. I went back to the dining room where they were still talking about the situation. So, we're leaving for vacation tomorrow. I think we've earned it after all the hard work we've been doing. I agree. We need this break. Is everything all right? Yes, dear, we were just talking about the weather and how it's a perfect day to relax somewhere. Would you like to join us? Maybe not today, Freddie. Oh, all right. When would you like to go then? Maybe tomorrow. Both Avril and Frédéric seemed to freeze for a moment, a reaction I was watching closely for. If I didn't know their plans, I might not have noticed it. I don't think tomorrow will work. I asked Freddie to help me with some tasks around the house. Oh, what tasks? Why is she asking so many questions? Just rearranging things. I can help too if you want. That won't be necessary. See how nosy she's being? I don't like it at all. You see why we have to leave this place. Don't worry, Mom, I can handle it. Despite knowing what they were saying, I managed to keep a smile on my face. I relied on the satisfaction of revenge that was coming soon. I kept recording their conversations until the end, so I could review them and gather every detail. Even though my French was improving, I wanted to be sure I got everything right. That night, I sneaked away to the office to do more investigating. I played back the recordings and my doubts about accuracy were gone. From all of this, I learned that there's a vacation planned for tomorrow to claim a house from Great Uncle Pierre. And these people apparently can't stand me and are planning to leave me. As a bonus, when I left my phone recording in the room with my husband and mother-in-law while pacing in the kitchen, I managed to pick up more useful information. Feeling quite sneaky and devious, I may or may not have altered the flight details, possibly postponing their flight to the day after tomorrow. That was just the first step of my plans. There was much more to come. Since I had obtained Great Uncle Pierre's number, I was prepared to take action. Hello, Uncle Pierre, it's Heather. Oh, hello, dear. How are you? Is everything all right? Well, not really. I went into great detail explaining the events of the day to Great Uncle Pierre. I even sent him the audio recordings as proof because without them, I doubted he would believe me. We ended the call so he could listen to the recordings, and we spoke again once he finished. Wow, I'm speechless. How could Avril do this? And Frédéric? They were so sweet and innocent when they were younger. How could they betray you like this? And me? I know it's hard to believe. It was shocking to me too. You've really improved your French. Well done. Thanks, Pierre. But now that we know this, what's our next move? Well, obviously, they're not getting the house. That's for sure. After hearing all of this, There's no way I'm giving such a lavish and honorable gift to people planning to destroy it with their deceitfulness and foolishness. Okay, I understand. It's your house, and you have every right to decide what happens to it. Yes, indeed I do. From now on, I'll be ignoring their calls. Let's see how they like that. Thanks again for bringing this to my attention. You're a good and kind-hearted person, Heather. Please don't let the ugliness of this world change that. Thank you for your time and for listening to me. I know hearing what you heard today couldn't have been easy. I admire your courage and strength. Please take care of yourself, Uncle Pierre. You too, dear. Good night. And with that, I knew I had sealed Avril and Frédéric's fate. With all the pieces in place, I just had to wait for the right moment to set things in motion. When I returned to the bedroom, Frédéric was still fast asleep. It hurt to know that my husband, whom I loved dearly, would treat me this way. I didn't know he felt those things, and maybe if we talked, we could have found a compromise. But instead, he chose the deceitful path. I took his phone and disabled his alarm. Without it, he would sleep through the morning, which he did. I packed my things and went to a hotel for the night. I couldn't bear to stay in a house with someone like him. The next day was chaotic. I'm sure Fred woke up to a barrage of missed calls from his mother and rushed to pack and get to the airport. I received a call from him at 2 p.m. Where are you? Why didn't my alarm go off, and why aren't you here? Oh, I decided to take a personal day for myself. Oh, that's nice. It would have been nice to know in advance, though. Yeah, same here, Freddie. What? What do you mean? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm running late for my flight. I mean my meeting with Mom. Why are you rushing? I'm sure she won't mind if you're a little late. You don't understand. Anyway, it's fine. I won't be home tonight, and I've got a lot to do tomorrow night. See you later. Before I could respond, he hung up. I'm pretty sure he was too overwhelmed to check the details of his ticket, which I had changed to the next day using the Find My iPhone app. I saw that he headed to the airport. Imagine waking up, rushing out of the house with barely any time to spare, only to find out your flight has been canceled. I'm sure he was frantic, running around the airport. Suddenly, I got a call from Avril. Hello, what have you done? What do you mean, Avril? Stop pretending. I know you changed our flight. If by changed you mean moved to a different date, then yes, that's exactly what I did. Why would you do that? I was trying to help you both out. Didn't you mention that you needed Fred's help with moving some things around? I noticed the flight was booked for today, the same day Fred was supposed to assist you. So I made some changes. You're welcome. Frédéric, come talk to your wife before I reach through the phone and strangle her. Heather, I don't know what you've done, but whatever it is, stop it now. Uncle Pierre still isn't answering his phone. Try again. He's not answering because he doesn't want to talk to you too. You can understand us? Every word. Yes, every last word. But how? I've been practicing. I told you, Mama. I told you she might be able to hear us. So that means yesterday you heard everything. Yep, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to divorce your good-for-nothing son and leave you two to your own devices. Have a blessed day. Oh, and next time you want to talk about someone with them right there, make sure they don't understand. Have a nice life. I hung up before they could respond. I was done with their games. Later in the day, I got a call from Uncle Pierre. Hello, dear. How are you? I'm feeling quite upset. I just had a terrible argument with Fred and Avril, and now I'm getting a divorce from him. I'm truly sorry things turned out this way, Heather. Life can be tough sometimes. How are you holding up? Well, I finally answered their call and gave them a piece of my mind. They're not happy about it. What'd you say? I told Fred he's foolish for treating you poorly, and I told Avril she's wicked for involving her son in her schemes. And I also told them I'd given you the house. You did what? Yes, dear. The mansion is yours, even if you divorce Fred. It's all yours, and you can share it with whoever you like. I don't know how to handle all of this. It's overwhelming. I wanted this house to go to someone kind, compassionate, and strong when needed. That's exactly who you are. The house is the least I could do after all the stress and turmoil those two put you through. It's yours. Take it. And with that, not only did I distance myself from two toxic people, but I also gained a multi-million-dollar mansion. Seeing me get what they always wanted made Avril and Frédéric furious. They sent me constant threats, but I responded with pictures of the house as a reminder it was mine, not theirs. Revenge never felt so satisfying.
The phone slipped from my fingers, hitting the kitchen counter with a sharp crack. Those 3 little dots kept pulsing on Connor's screen, taunting me with their rhythmic dance. Someone was typing, deleting, typing again. I shouldn't have looked. Shouldn't have noticed the notification. Shouldn't have touched his phone at all. I'm Addison, and until 30 seconds ago, I thought I knew what trust meant. Mom? Everything okay? Chloe's voice drifted down from upstairs, probably hearing the clatter of the phone. Fine, honey. Just dropped something. My voice stayed steady, a teacher's practiced control. 16 years of marriage, and here I was, hands trembling over a text message that read, "Same time tonight? I'll wear that thing you like." The message disappeared before my eyes, deleted. Of course. Connor always was meticulous about covering his tracks. Even the way he arranged his shoes by the door, perfectly aligned, spoke of someone who liked things just so. Need help with dinner? Chloe appeared in the doorway, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun, Connor's eyes staring back at me from her face. The similarity made my stomach turn. Actually, yes. I needed a witness, someone to ground me in reality. Could you chop these onions? She moved beside me, our elbows touching as we worked. The kitchen filled with the sharp scent of onions, masking the acid taste of bile rising in my throat. Dad working late again? Her knife tapped steadily against the cutting board. Bars busy on Thursdays. The lie came easily, practiced over months of similar conversations. But now the words felt like glass in my mouth. My phone buzzed. Connor. Traffic's terrible. Don't wait up. Chloe peered over my shoulder. 3rd Thursday this month. I looked at her sharply. She'd been counting. Mason noticed too, she added, scraping onions into the pot. He pretends not to, but he does. The front door opened, and Mason's backpack hit the floor with its usual thud. His footsteps dragged toward the kitchen, heavy with teenage exhaustion. Dad working late? He asked, reaching for an apple. Chloe's knife paused mid-chop. The silence stretched until I forced words through numb lips. Yes, honey. The bar's busy. Mason bit into his apple, eyes fixed on something distant. Weird. I walked past there after practice. Place looked pretty dead. The wooden spoon in my hand snapped. Both kids stared at the broken pieces. Mom? Chloe's voice was careful, measured. It's nothing. I tossed the splintered wood into the trash. Just old. Everything gets old eventually, doesn't it? Mason disappeared upstairs, but Chloe lingered, her presence both comfort and witness to my unraveling. You know, she said, voice low, Aunt Rachel mentioned this guy, Peter something. He's good at finding things out. Things people want to keep hidden. My hands stilled over the stove. Your aunt talks too much. Maybe. Chloe shrugged. Or maybe she talks just enough. I turned to face my daughter, really looking at her. When had she grown so perceptive? So strong? Sometimes, she continued, the worst part isn't what you find out. It's pretending you don't already know. The timer buzzed, making us both jump. Dinner would be ready soon, a meal for 3 instead of 4. Again. I picked up Connor's phone, still lying where it fell. The screen had cracked, a spider web of lines distorting his lock screen, our family photo from last summer's vacation. All of us smiling, none of us seeing the fractures already forming. Mom? Chloe touched my arm. What are you going to do? I placed the broken phone exactly where Connor always left it, aligned perfectly with the counter's edge. I'm going to serve dinner. And then I'm going to make a phone call. To Peter. To Peter. The decision settled in my chest like a stone. Because you're right, honey. The pretending has to stop. Peter's office smelled like old coffee and secrets. The leather chair creaked under me as I pulled out Connor's credit card statements, copies I'd made while he slept. My hands didn't shake anymore. That was new. These are from the last 6 months, I said, spreading them across Peter's desk. Notice anything? He adjusted his reading glasses, weathered fingers tracing the lines of numbers. The Chandler Hotel. Every Thursday. He glanced up. Expensive taste. We've never stayed there. The words tasted bitter. Not once in 16 years. Peter nodded, his silence more telling than words. I'd known him since before Connor, back when he'd helped my sister through her divorce. Now here I was, following her footsteps. My phone buzzed. Connor. Running late tonight. Business meeting. Of course you are, I muttered, switching the phone off. Have you confronted him? Peter gathered the statements into a neat pile. Not yet. The door opened, cutting me off. Jenna stood in the doorway, her college backpack slung over one shoulder. Uncle Peter, I brought those files you, oh. Her eyes widened. Aunt Addison. The room suddenly felt too small. Jenna, my niece, Connor's part-time bartender, the girl who'd practically grown up in our house, shifted uncomfortably. Just dropping off some paperwork, I said, too quickly. For the school fundraiser. Right. Jenna's laugh was nervous, high-pitched. I should go. My shift at the bar starts soon. Thursday night. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Must be busy. Something flickered across her face, guilt? Fear? She practically fled the office. Peter watched her go, his expression unreadable. That's interesting. What is? The bar's closed on Thursdays. Has been for months. Renovation work. The room tilted sideways. I gripped the edge of his desk, knuckles white. Connor told me. He said. I know what he said. Peter's voice was gentle. Question is, what are you going to do about it? My phone lit up again, Chloe. Mom, Dad's home early. He's asking questions about where you are. I stood, gathering the statements. I need proof. Real proof. Addison. Peter's tone made me pause. Be careful. Sometimes the truth is worse than we imagine. At home, Connor was in the kitchen, cooking. He only cooked when he felt guilty. Where were you? His smile was perfect, practiced. I tried calling. Parent-teacher conferences. The lie came easily now. You know how it is. He nodded, stirring something that smelled like garlic and deception. Jenna's coming for dinner. Thought it would be nice, family time. My heart stopped. Jenna? Yeah, she seemed upset earlier. Said she could use some family support. Chloe appeared in the doorway, her eyes finding mine. I invited Mason's friend over too. For support. Connor's spatula paused mid-stir. What friend? Jake. His dad's a lawyer. Chloe's voice was innocent, but her message was clear. She was building witnesses. The more the merrier, I said, matching Connor's smile with one of my own. Two could play at this game of perfect families. Later, as everyone gathered around the dinner table, I watched. Watched how Jenna wouldn't meet my eyes. How Connor's hand shook slightly as he passed the bread. How Mason kept looking between them, picking up on the tension none of us would name. So, Jenna, I said, cutting into my chicken. How's work at the bar? Good. She stabbed a piece of broccoli. Quiet on Thursdays. Connor's fork clattered against his plate. Chloe kicked me under the table, a warning or encouragement, I couldn't tell. Funny, Mason said, since it's closed for renovations. The silence that followed was deafening. Connor recovered first. Different sections, different days. You know how construction goes. But the crack was there, visible now. In his voice, in Jenna's rigid posture, in the way everyone at the table suddenly found their plates fascinating. I stood, gathering empty glasses. Who wants dessert? I made Connor's favorite. Actually, Jenna pushed back her chair, I should go. But you've barely eaten, Connor protested. Our eyes met across the table, and for a moment, I saw fear in his. He knew. He knew that I knew. Stay, Jenna, I said softly. Family should stick together, don't you think? The timer in the kitchen went off, shrill and insistent. Someone had to break first. It was just a matter of time. The Chandler Hotel receipt burned in my pocket as I walked through its marble lobby. Everything gleamed, the floors, the fixtures, the fake smiles of the staff. The kind of place that charged extra for secrets. Can I help you? The receptionist's nameplate read, Sarah. I hope so. I slid my driver's license across the counter. My husband's been staying here. Connor Walsh? I need a copy of his latest bill for our tax records. Sarah's fingers hesitated over her keyboard. I'm sorry, but we can't. Please. I leaned closer, lowering my voice. I found charges on our credit card. If there's been fraud, I need to report it. Her expression shifted, sympathy, maybe recognition. She'd probably seen this scene before. One moment. She typed, then frowned. That's odd. The charges are under a different name, but the card matches your husband's. My throat tightened. What name? James Peterson. She turned the screen. Room 412, every Thursday for the past 3 months. James Peterson. Connor's grandfather's name. The man he'd always said he wanted to honor. There's a standing reservation for this Thursday, Sarah added. Shall I print the details? I nodded, numb. The printer hummed, spitting out paper that felt like sandpaper in my hands. My phone buzzed. Peter. Got something. Meet me at the bar. The bar was dark, closed for renovations that showed no sign of progress. Peter waited in his car across the street. Look at this. He handed me a manila envelope. Inside were photos, Connor entering the hotel, Jenna following 20 minutes later. Both carrying overnight bags. When? Last Thursday. Peter's voice was gentle. There's more. The next photo showed Connor at an ATM, withdrawing cash. Then at a jewelry store, emerging with a small bag. The bracelet, I whispered. The one Jenna had been wearing at dinner. Addison. Peter touched my arm. The hotel receipts, the jewelry, it's not the whole story. Look at the last photo. It was grainy, taken through a window. Connor and Jenna at a table, papers spread between them. One looked like a passport. He's planning something, Peter said. Something bigger than an affair. My phone lit up, Connor. Working late again. Don't wait up. I looked at the hotel reservation in my hand. 3 hours from now, room 412. I need to see that room. Peter's eyes widened. Addison, don't. Sarah will help me. My voice sounded strange, distant. She understands. The hotel key card felt heavy in my hand. Sarah had barely hesitated when I explained. Another woman who knew the taste of betrayal. Room 412 was pristine, waiting for its Thursday guests. I moved through it like a ghost, touching nothing, seeing everything. 2 water glasses by the bed. A forgotten hair tie on the bathroom counter. Jenna's brand. The closet door was ajar. Inside, a small safe stood open. Empty, except for a folded paper that had slipped behind it. My hands shook as I retrieved it. A bank statement from the Cayman Islands. Connor's grandfather's name again, but recent dates. Large deposits. My phone buzzed again. Chloe, Mom, where are you? Dad came home, but left again. He's acting weird. Then Mason, Mom, I heard Dad on the phone. Something about tickets. And finally Peter, get out of there. Now. Footsteps in the hallway. Keys jingling. I slipped into the bathroom, heart pounding. The door opened. You're early. Connor's voice. Had to make sure everything was ready. Jenna. Tickets are confirmed. Once the transfer clears next week, we're gone. What about Addison? The kids? A pause. They'll be fine. The divorce papers are ready. She'll get the house, enough money to keep quiet. She's not stupid, Connor. She knows something's wrong. By the time she figures it out, we'll be gone. 3 million buys a lot of distance. I pressed my hand against my mouth, stifling a laugh or a scream. 3 million. Our life reduced to a number. My phone buzzed silently. Peter again, police are on their way. Anonymous tip about fraud. Stay hidden. Through the bathroom door, I heard champagne being poured. Celebrations beginning. Endings too. I touched the bank statement in my pocket. Sometimes the worst betrayals aren't about the heart at all. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. In the other room, glasses clinked together in a toast to futures that would never come. The police station hummed with fluorescent lights and half-truths. I sat across from Detective Morris, the Cayman Islands bank statement between us, while Connor spent his first night in a holding cell. $3 million, Morris said, tapping the paper. That's a lot of renovation money. Funny how expensive lies can be. My voice didn't shake anymore. That should have scared me. Mrs. Walsh, we'll need you to sign these statements. He slid papers across his desk. But there's something else you should know. A knock interrupted us. Jenna stood in the doorway, wearing that damned bracelet. Her eyes were red, mascara smudged. I'm ready to talk, she said. Morris nodded. Have a seat. I stood to leave, but Jenna caught my arm. Stay. Please. You need to hear this. The bracelet glinted under the harsh lights. Connor's grandfather's name echoed in my head, James Peterson. A dead man's identity used to steal from the living. The money, Jenna started, then stopped. Swallowed. It wasn't just from the bar. Morris leaned forward. Go on. Connor. He's been running something bigger. The bar was just a front. She twisted the bracelet around her wrist. I thought I was helping with bookkeeping, but then I saw the real numbers. My phone buzzed. Chloe, Mom, there are people at the house. They're asking about Dad's business partners. Then Mason, Mom, they're taking Dad's computers. Mrs. Walsh. Morris was watching me. Your children are safe. We have officers there. Jenna's voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Aunt Addison. He said if I didn't help, he'd tell everyone about the accident. What accident? She pulled up her sleeve. Above the bracelet, a long scar traced her forearm. Last year, at the bar. A customer got rough. Connor. He handled it. Said he'd protect me, but then he started asking for favors. The room tilted sideways. Connor, my Connor, who color-coded his sock drawer and remembered every anniversary. Who apparently buried bodies and laundered money. The hotel meetings, I said, were for business. Jenna's laugh was hollow. The kind you can't do in broad daylight. Morris spread out more papers. We've traced connections to 3 other establishments. All using the same pattern. My phone lit up again. Peter, don't react. Connor made bail. His brother posted it. The brother we hadn't spoken to in 5 years. The one Connor said was trouble. Detective, my voice was steady, I need protection for my children. Already arranged. He gestured to an officer. We'll have someone escort you. No. Jenna stood abruptly. You can't go home. Connor has a backup plan. He always has a backup plan. The bracelet caught the light again, and suddenly I understood. It's not just jewelry, is it? She unclasped it, handed it to Morris. Look inside the links. The detective examined it under a magnifying glass. USB drives. Clever. Everything's there, Jenna whispered. Every transaction, every name. He gave it to me as insurance, but really it was a trap. If anything happened, I'd go down too. My phone buzzed one final time, an unknown number. You have no idea what you've started. Connor's voice, even in text, was perfectly controlled. Like his sock drawer. Like his lies. Detective, I stood, gathering my coat, I need to make a call. In the hallway, I dialed Chloe. Pack bags for you and Mason. Peter's coming to get you. Mom? Her voice was small. Are we ever coming back? I watched through the window as Morris bagged the bracelet, proof of both corruption and corruption's cure. Not until it's safe. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass. Not until I finish what your father started. Behind me, Jenna approached, her wrist bare where the bracelet had been. I want to help. For real this time. I turned to face her, seeing not my niece but a mirror, another woman trapped in Connor's web, looking for redemption. Then help me understand, I said. Everything. Because sometimes, the only way to end a story is to go back to its beginning. Even if that beginning was built on graves we never knew we were dancing on. Peter's safe house smelled like dust and old promises. I watched the surveillance feed on his laptop, my children asleep in the next room. On screen, Connor paced his office at the bar, phone pressed to his ear. The cameras were Jenna's idea, Peter said, adjusting the volume. She planted them yesterday. The audio crackled. Connor's voice filled the room. No, listen. The police don't have everything. The bracelet's just insurance. Yes, I know what happens if, don't threaten me. Jenna sat beside me, her bare wrist a reminder of what we'd given up. There's more coming. Watch. On screen, Connor's brother Marcus entered the frame. The prodigal son, returned at last. You promised this would be clean, Marcus said. Now the cops are crawling everywhere. Addison doesn't know the whole story. Connor's laugh was ugly. She thinks it's just about money and a cheap affair. Let her. My fingers curled into fists. Beside me, Jenna tensed. And the kids? Marcus asked. Leverage, if I need it. Connor straightened his perfectly pressed shirt. Addison won't risk them. The laptop screen cracked under my grip. Peter gently pried my hands away. Mom? Chloe stood in the doorway, Mason behind her. They'd heard everything. Go pack, I said. We're leaving. No. Chloe moved closer, eyes fixed on the screen. We're done running. On the feed, Connor pulled out a familiar leather notebook, my grandmother's diary, the one thing I'd saved from my childhood home. See this? Connor waved it at Marcus. Everything we need is in here. The old property deeds, the original contracts. Once we have those. The development deal goes through, Marcus finished. And the money gets cleaned through the construction. Perfect crime. My grandmother's land. The acres of forest she'd protected, that I'd inherited. That Connor had been trying to get me to sign over for months. He can't access it without your signature, Peter said quietly. No. I watched Connor slide the diary into his safe. But he can make me sign. Jenna stood abruptly. I need to go back. What? No. The word came out sharp. He trusts me now. Thinks I'm terrified of the police finding out about everything. She touched her scarred arm. I can get into that safe. It's too dangerous. But even as I said it, I knew she was right. Mason stepped forward, his quiet voice steady. Dad always said I was just like him. Maybe it's time to use that. What do you mean? He'll expect me to come home. The dutiful son, worried about his father. His smile was pure Connor. I can distract him while Jenna gets the diary. Absolutely not. But Chloe was already nodding. I'll create a scene at school, she said. He'll have to come deal with it. Administrative emergency, parent conference. You've all lost your minds. I looked at Peter for support, but he was studying the surveillance feed thoughtfully. It could work, he said. With the right timing. On screen, Connor opened another bottle of whiskey, his movements precise even in destruction. Just like everything else he'd torn apart. My phone buzzed. Detective Morris, Connor's brother, made some interesting calls. You need to move. Now. Another message followed, and Mrs. Walsh? Whatever you're planning. Make it count. I looked at my children, seeing not victims but warriors. At Jenna, no longer the manipulated niece but a survivor seeking redemption. At Peter, who'd watched my sister's destruction and wouldn't let history repeat. Tomorrow, I said finally. We do it tomorrow. And then? Chloe asked. I watched Connor on screen, drinking to victories he hadn't won yet. Then we take everything. Not just the diary or the evidence. Everything. Because sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. Sometimes it's about reconstruction, building something stronger from the ashes of what was burned. Mom? Mason's voice was soft. Are we bad people for doing this? No, honey. I pulled him close, feeling Chloe and Jenna join the embrace. We're just finally playing by his rules. On the laptop, Connor raised his glass in a silent toast, unaware that his perfect plan was about to meet its perfect destruction. The plan fell apart like everything else in my life, quickly and without mercy. I stood in Connor's office, my grandmother's diary clutched to my chest, while Mason lay unconscious on the floor. The cut above his eye still bled. Sit down, Addison. Connor's voice was silk over steel. The gun in his hand didn't waver. He's 14, I whispered. He's your son. He's a liability. Like mother, like son. He gestured to the chair. Now sit. Through the office window, I could see Jenna being led away by Marcus, her attempt to crack the safe having failed spectacularly. Chloe's diversionary tactic at school had only bought us minutes, not the hours we'd needed. The diary. Connor held out his free hand. Unless you want Mason to wake up with more than just a headache. My fingers traced the worn leather cover. Inside were the property deeds, the contracts, my grandmother's legacy. And now, Connor's ticket to millions. You never loved me, did you? The question surprised us both. His laugh was familiar, yet strange. I loved what you represented. The perfect wife, the perfect cover. He stepped closer. Sign the papers, and this ends quietly. Like that customer at the bar. The one Jenna told me about. Something flickered in his eyes. She should have kept her mouth shut. Like you kept quiet about the money laundering. The development deals. Careful, darling. The gun shifted toward Mason. You're not the only one with evidence. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Peter's signal, the police were in position. I just needed to keep Connor talking. Why Jenna? The question had haunted me for weeks. Because she was easy. Vulnerable. Just like you were, 16 years ago. His smile turned cruel. Remember? The grieving teacher, so lost after her grandmother's death. So eager for someone to take control. Mason stirred, groaning. Connor's finger tightened on the trigger. The papers, Addison. Now. I placed the diary on his desk, opened it to the marked page. My hands didn't shake as I picked up the pen. That's my girl. Connor's voice dripped satisfaction. Always so. The window exploded inward. Connor fired, once, twice. I threw myself over Mason as glass rained down. Police. Drop the weapon. But Connor was already moving, grabbing the diary with one hand, shooting with the other. I heard Peter shout, heard returning fire. Then silence. I lifted my head. Connor was gone, taking the diary with him. Blood stained the carpet where I knelt, Mason's, mine, maybe both. Mom? Mason's eyes fluttered open. Did we get it? I helped him sit up, checking his wound. No, baby. We didn't. But I saw Jenna. He winced. Before Dad hit me. She had something in her hand. Peter burst through the door, gun drawn. Addison. Are you? He's gone. I pressed my sleeve against Mason's cut. He has the diary. Peter holstered his weapon, a strange smile playing at his lips. Does he? From his jacket, he pulled out familiar worn leather. My grandmother's diary. How? The one Connor took was a copy. Jenna appeared in the doorway, Marcus notably absent. We switched them last week. The real documents are safe. But the safe. My head spun. The plan was exactly what Connor expected. Peter helped Mason to his feet. So we gave him what he wanted to see. Through the broken window, sirens wailed. Connor would be running, thinking he had won. Thinking he had destroyed me one final time. Mom? Mason leaned against me. What happens now? I opened the diary, passed the property deeds to the last page. There, in my grandmother's handwriting, was a name I hadn't seen in years. A name Connor didn't know about. Now, I said, we finish this. For real. Because sometimes rock bottom isn't where you end. Sometimes it's where you finally see the truth, not just about others, but about yourself. And what I saw was crystal clear. Connor hadn't married a victim 16 years ago. He'd married a survivor. He just didn't know it yet. The Chandler Hotel's penthouse suite looked different in daylight. Colder. Like Connor's smile as he watched me enter, his fake diary still clutched in his hand. I wondered how long it would take you to find me. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey. Always the perfect host. Where's Marcus? Gone. With the money. Connor's laugh held no humor. Turns out betrayal runs in the family. I moved closer, noting the packed bags by the door. Like father, like son. Speaking of sons. He slid one glass toward me. How's Mason's head? My fingers itched to grab the crystal tumbler and smash it into his perfect teeth. Instead, I pulled out my phone, playing the video Jenna had recorded last year, the accident at the bar. Connor's expression didn't change as he watched himself push the drunk customer down the stairs. Watched Jenna scream. Watched himself stage the scene. Insurance, he said simply. Like everything else. Including me. Especially you. He closed the diary. Though I have to admit, you surprised me. All these years, I thought you were just convenient. Movement in the hallway caught my eye, Peter's signal. Everything was in place. The property deeds, I said. They're worthless without my signature. About that. Connor's smile widened. Remember our anniversary trip to Vegas? That contract you signed while slightly intoxicated? My blood ran cold. You didn't. Power of attorney. Limited, but enough. He pulled out another document. Everything transfers tomorrow. The land, the development rights, all of it. There's just one problem. I finally picked up the whiskey glass. You're reading the wrong diary. The door burst open. Detective Morris entered, followed by Peter and, most surprisingly, Marcus. "Hello, brother," Marcus said. "Sorry about the money. Had to make it look good." Connor's composure cracked. "What?" I opened my grandmother's real diary to the last page. "Remember when you asked about my grandfather? The one who disappeared before I was born." Understanding dawned in his eyes as he read the name, James Peterson. "Your grandfather's identity," he whispered. "The one I used for money laundering, tax evasion, murder." Morris stepped forward. "We have it all, Mr. Walsh. Including your Vegas paperwork. Forgery's a serious charge." Connor lunged for the balcony. I moved without thinking, years of suppressed rage finding their target. The whiskey glass shattered against his temple. He stumbled, fell. "That's for Mason," I said. Peter and Morris moved to restrain him, but Connor was laughing through the blood. "You think this changes anything?" He spat. "You're still the grieving teacher. The convenient wife. The perfect victim." "No." Jenna appeared in the doorway, holding a familiar bracelet. "She's the woman who taught me to stop being afraid." The USB drives hidden in the bracelet's links contained everything, every transaction, every threat, every carefully orchestrated manipulation. Including his confession from moments ago. "You recorded." Connor's mask finally shattered completely. "Like you taught me," Jenna said. "Insurance." Morris read him his rights while Peter checked his restraints. Through it all, Connor kept his eyes on me. "I did love you," he said quietly. "In my way." "I know." I gathered the real diary, the evidence of his crimes. That's what makes this perfect. What does? Knowing that for 16 years, you thought you were destroying me. I moved to the door. When really, I was learning how to destroy you. "Mom?" Chloe waited in the hallway, Mason beside her. Both stronger than I'd ever been at their age. "It's done," I said. Behind us, Connor called my name one last time. I didn't turn around. Some endings don't need an audience. In the elevator, Mason touched the fading cut above his eye. Was it worth it? I looked at my children, at Jenna, at the family we'd pieced together from broken trust and shared survival. "Ask me tomorrow," I said. Because some victories take time to feel real. And some scars need to fade before you can see them as battle wounds rather than weaknesses. But tomorrow was finally ours to decide. The courthouse steps felt colder than they should in spring. I watched Connor being led away in handcuffs, his perfect posture finally broken. He didn't look back. Neither did I. "Ready?" Peter held out my grandmother's diary. Inside the courtroom, the evidence had spoken for itself. The USB drives, the financial records, the video confession. But it was the diary that had sealed everything, my grandfather's identity, the original property deeds, the truth Connor had tried to steal. Almost. I turned to face the gathered press. They wanted their story, the betrayed wife, the corrupt businessman, the perfect family shattered. But that wasn't my story to tell anymore. Jenna stepped forward, her scarred arm now worn like a badge. "I'll handle the statements." "You don't have to," I said. "I do." She squared her shoulders. "For both of us." Mason touched the fading cut above his eye. "Can we go home now?" Home. Not the house Connor had chosen, with its perfect lawn and carefully arranged furniture. Something new. Something ours. Actually, Chloe pulled out a set of keys, my grandmother's old house keys. "I have an idea about that." The property stretched before us, acres of forest Connor had tried to steal. The old house stood exactly as I remembered, waiting. "It needs work," Peter observed. Good. I watched Mason wander toward the creek where I'd played as a child. We need something to build. Mom? Chloe's voice was hesitant. There's something else you should know. She handed me her phone. On screen was a message from Connor's brother Marcus. The money he stole from you, I found it. All of it. What do you want to do? Peter asked. I looked at my children, at Jenna, at the home that had sheltered 3 generations of survivors. I want to build something he can't break. The contractor arrived that afternoon. As she surveyed the property, I opened the diary one last time. Past the deeds and documents, past the evidence that had destroyed Connor's empire, to a letter I'd never shown anyone. Not even in court. My dearest Addison, my grandmother's handwriting flowed across the page. By the time you read this, you'll understand why your grandfather disappeared. Why I had to protect what was ours. Sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to fight back. Mom? Mason called from the creek. Look what I found. He held up a piece of sea glass, smoothed by water and time. Green, like his eyes. Like Connor's eyes. Keep it, I said. Some things are worth remembering. Even the bad stuff. Especially the bad stuff. I touched his healed cut. It shows us who we really are. Jenna joined us, her phone buzzing with interview requests. They want to know what happens next. Tell them the truth, Chloe said. Tell them we're building something. The contractor's estimate arrived, repairs, renovations, new beginnings. All funded by Connor's hidden accounts, now frozen and seized. Justice had a price tag, after all. There's one more thing, Peter said quietly. He handed me an envelope, divorce papers, already signed. Connor's final surrender. I didn't open them. Some endings don't need witnesses. Instead, I watched my family explore their new home. Mason by the creek, finding pieces of the past. Chloe on the porch, planning the future. Jenna with her camera, documenting everything Connor had failed to destroy. You know, Peter said, revenge usually leaves people empty. This isn't revenge. I picked up a piece of sea glass Mason had missed. This is reconstruction. The sun set behind the trees Connor had tried to sell, casting shadows that looked like possibilities. Tomorrow would bring contractors and questions, reporters and responsibilities. But tonight, in this moment, I held my grandmother's diary and my children's future in the same hands. And neither felt heavy anymore. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't in destroying what hurt you. It's in building something so strong, so beautiful, that the hurt becomes just another layer in its foundation. And we were already building. I found it beneath my pillow, a small silver hoop earring with a dangling pearl. Not mine. Never mine. The sight of it made my stomach twist into familiar knots, the kind that signal your world is about to implode but your brain hasn't caught up yet. I'm Brooke, and until this moment, I'd been playing the role of the perfect wife in this pristine suburban nightmare. Funny how a tiny piece of jewelry can shatter years of carefully maintained denial. Honey, have you seen my blue tie? Ryan's voice drifted up from downstairs, casual and unbothered, like always. Like he hadn't just destroyed everything. Check the laundry room, I called back, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. I rolled the earring between my fingers, feeling its weight, so light, yet somehow heavy enough to crush me. Found it. He sounded pleased with himself. Always so pleased with himself. I heard his footsteps on the stairs and quickly slipped the earring into my pocket. Ryan appeared in the doorway, adjusting his tie with practiced precision. Big case today. Probably won't be home until late. Again. I raised an eyebrow, watching him smooth down his already perfect hair in the mirror. Your mother called. She's expecting us for dinner on Sunday. He barely flickered. Did you tell her we're busy? No, because we're not. I moved closer, straightening his collar. Close enough to smell his cologne, to see the slight tension in his jaw. Unless there's another late meeting? Don't start, Brooke. He caught my hand, squeezed it just a little too hard. You know how important this case is. I pulled away, forcing a smile. Of course. The Morrison divorce, right? Thompson merger, he corrected, too quickly. The Morrison case wrapped up last week. My mistake. I turned away, organizing the already pristine dresser top. Give my best to Mrs. Morrison. Or Thompson. Whoever's keeping you late tonight. His reflection in the mirror stiffened. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. I picked up his discarded pajama pants, folded them with precise corners. Just being a supportive wife. Isn't that what your mother's always saying I should be? Ryan checked his watch, already dismissing the conversation. I don't have time for this. We'll talk later. Will we? But he was already gone, his footsteps echoing down the stairs. I waited until I heard the garage door close, then pulled out the earring again. Such a delicate thing. Probably expensive, Ryan always did have expensive taste. In the morning light, the pearls seemed to mock me, gleaming with secrets I wasn't supposed to know. My phone buzzed. Elena, coffee? You sound weird in your texts. I typed back, can't. Errands. Then added, actually, yes. Meet me at Riverside Cafe in 30. Her response was immediate, on my way. Bring whatever's making you text like a crazy person at 8 a.m. I slipped the earring into an envelope, grabbed my purse, and headed for the door. As I passed the hall mirror, I caught my reflection, perfectly styled hair, carefully applied makeup. Designer clothes chosen to please my mother-in-law's critical eye. The woman staring back at me looked exactly like what Ryan wanted, the trophy wife, the perfect accessory to his successful life. That woman was about to become his biggest mistake. I pulled out my phone again and opened my banking app. Time to see exactly how many late meetings my husband had been expensing lately. Ryan taught me well, document everything, trust no one, and always be 3 steps ahead. Let's see how he likes having those lessons turned against him. The Sunday dinner table at the Davis household always felt like a courtroom, with Deborah as judge and jury. Tonight, the china clinked with particular menace as she served her signature pot roast. Her eyes fixed on the empty chair where Ryan should have been. Another late meeting? She didn't even try to hide the accusation in her tone. The Morrison case is complicated, I lied, the same lie Ryan had fed me. The earring burned in my pocket where I'd kept it all week, my own secret evidence. A wife should know her husband's schedule. Deborah's knife scraped against her plate. In my day, we made sure to keep track. Frank cleared his throat. Deb, let the girl eat. I'm not a girl, Frank. The words slipped out before I could stop them. And I'm quite aware of Ryan's schedule. Deborah's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. What exactly does that mean? I took a slow sip of wine, buying time. It means I respect my husband's career. Isn't that what you've always wanted? What I want, Deborah leaned forward, is for my son to have a proper home life. Children, perhaps? Instead of this modern arrangement. The word modern dripped with disdain. I set down my glass carefully, remembering Elena's words from our coffee meeting, don't let them bait you. You're playing chess, not checkers. Speaking of modern, I smiled sweetly, how's your online banking working out? Ryan mentioned setting it up for you. Deborah blinked, thrown by the change in topic. Oh, well. Yes. Though I prefer having Frank handle the finances. Really? Because I noticed Ryan's been helping with quite a few transfers lately. I watched her face carefully. Large ones. The color drained from Deborah's face. Frank suddenly became very interested in his pot roast. I don't know what you're implying, Deborah's voice wavered slightly. I'm not implying anything. Just making conversation about family finances. Isn't that what proper wives do? Frank's fork clattered against his plate. Brooke, perhaps we should. Perhaps we should discuss why Ryan's been moving money from his parents' accounts into a separate one. I pulled out my phone, sliding it across the table. Or why these transfers coincide with his late meetings. Deborah snatched up the phone, her hands shaking. These are private family matters. I am family. Or have you forgotten that in your rush to defend your perfect son? How dare you? How dare I what? Notice? Ask questions? Be more than just the trophy wife you wanted for Ryan? Frank stood abruptly. That's enough. You're right, Frank. It is enough. I stood too, gathering my purse. Thank you for dinner. Oh, and Deborah. You might want to check the Morrison case details. It ended 2 weeks ago. Ryan's been lying to all of us. I made it to my car before the tears started, but they weren't tears of sadness. For the first time in years, I felt something else, power. My phone buzzed with a text from Elena. Did you do it? Phase 1 complete, I typed back. They know something's wrong, but not what. Yet. Another buzz. Ryan called. Looking for you. Of course he was. His mother would have reached him immediately, warning him that his carefully constructed world was starting to crack. I started the car, checking my rearview mirror. Deborah stood in the doorway, phone to her ear, gesturing frantically. Frank paced behind her, his military bearing forgotten in his agitation. My phone rang, Ryan's ringtone. I let it go to voicemail, imagining his face as he realized his mother knew about the money. He'd try to explain it away, of course. He was good at that. But the seeds of doubt were planted. The earring felt heavy in my pocket. Soon, very soon, it would make its appearance. But not yet. First, let him squirm, let him wonder what else I knew. I pulled away from the house, leaving chaos in my wake. Ryan had taught me well, in law, timing is everything. And my timing was about to become perfect. Ryan's laptop screen glowed in the darkness of his home office, illuminating secrets he thought were buried in encrypted files. Amazing what a spouse's birthday as a password can unlock. My hands trembled as I scrolled through email after email, each one worse than the last. Sarah, meet me at the usual place. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Miss you already. The messages stretched back months. Years. My marriage unraveling in time-stamped betrayals. A notification popped up, a new email from his bank. Another transfer, larger than the others. I clicked, then froze. The recipient's name matched the signature on those loving emails. Sarah Morrison. Not just his client's wife. His client's soon-to-be ex-wife. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. The Morrison divorce case. The one he'd wrapped up last week. The late meetings. The money from his parents. It all connected like a prosecutor's evidence board. My phone buzzed. Elena, you okay? It's 3 a.m. Before I could respond, headlights swept across the office window. Ryan's car, turning into the driveway. Early. Too early. I quickly closed the laptop, but not before forwarding key emails to my secure account. The stairs creaked under my feet as I hurried to our bedroom, heart pounding. The front door opened. Brooke? His voice carried up the stairs, tight with tension. We need to talk. I sat at my vanity, deliberately casual, when he appeared in the doorway. About what? My mother called. He loosened his tie, watching me in the mirror. Said you were asking questions about family finances. Worried about what I might find? His reflection smiled, but his eyes remained cold. There's nothing to find, sweetheart. Just some investments I'm handling for them. I opened my jewelry box, pulled out the pearl earring. Like this investment? The color drained from his face. Where did you? Your pillow. Last week. I set it on the vanity. Sarah has good taste. Tiffany's, right? Must have cost a fortune. Or did you use your parents' money for that too? It's not what you think. He stepped closer, reaching for my shoulder. I jerked away. Really? Because I think you're sleeping with your client's wife while stealing from your parents to fund your affair. I turned to face him. How am I doing so far? His facade cracked. Keep your voice down. Why? Afraid the neighbors might hear? Or afraid I might tell your mother exactly where her retirement fund went? You're being hysterical. His lawyer voice now, smooth and reasonable. Let me explain. Explain what? The hotel receipts. The secret account? Or should we discuss the Morrison case that conveniently made Sarah a very wealthy divorcee? He grabbed my arm, fingers digging in. You had no right to go through my things. Like you had no right to go through our marriage vows. I yanked free. Let me guess, Sarah's more understanding. More compliant. Everything your mother always wanted for you. Stop it. His voice cracked. Just stop. Why? Getting uncomfortable. Imagine how your father will feel when he learns his military pension is funding your midlife crisis. His hand shot out, knocking the jewelry box off the vanity. It crashed to the floor, scattering memories across the carpet. We both stared at the mess, breathing hard. You've changed, he whispered. No. I stepped over the scattered jewelry. I've just stopped pretending. Like you should have years ago. I grabbed my overnight bag, packed days ago, waiting for this moment. Ryan blocked the doorway. Where are you going? Away from you. Unless you'd like to explain to your parents why their daughter-in-law left in the middle of the night. He moved aside, defeated for now. But I knew better than to think it was over. We're not done, he called after me. Oh, we're just getting started. I paused at the top of the stairs. By the way, Sarah's other earring? Check your car's glove compartment. Wouldn't want her missing a matched set. I left him standing there, surrounded by the wreckage of his perfect life. In my purse, my phone buzzed with another bank notification. Another transfer from Ryan's account, this time, to my private one. Let him explain that to Sarah over their next late-night meeting. Elena's guest room felt like a confessional at 3 in the morning. I sat cross-legged on the bed, surrounded by printouts of bank statements and email threads, each page another nail in my marriage's coffin. You need to eat something, Elena appeared with coffee and toast. Revenge requires sustenance. I'm not sure it's revenge anymore. I pushed aside a stack of papers. It feels more like survival. My phone lit up, another message from Ryan. The 20th since I'd left. Each one increasingly desperate, come home. We can fix this. Don't do anything rash. Elena picked up one of the bank statements. Holy shit. Is this amount real? That's just what he took from his parents. I handed her another paper. This is what he's been moving to Sarah's accounts. The client's wife. Elena whistled. That's not just an affair. That's fraud. I finished her sentence. He's been manipulating the Morrison divorce settlement, hiding assets, creating fake expenses. The works. Have you told his parents? Not everything. I sipped the coffee, letting its warmth chase away the chill of certainty. Deborah called earlier. She's worried about Ryan's state of mind. Apparently, he's been acting erratic at work. Good. Elena's voice was hard. Let him squirm. My phone buzzed again. Not Ryan this time, Frank Davis. Brooke, we need to talk. Just us. Please. Elena read the message over my shoulder. It's a trap. Maybe. I stood up, pacing the room. But Frank's different from Deborah. He knows something's wrong with their accounts. He's been a military officer, he understands chain of command, following rules. And breaking them. Elena grabbed my arm. What if Ryan sent him? Then I'll have confirmation that they're all in it together. I started gathering the papers. Either way, I need to know. At least meet him somewhere public. I nodded, typing a response, the coffee shop on Main. 1 hour. Frank was already there when I arrived, sitting ramrod straight in his military posture. No coffee in front of him, just a manila envelope. Thank you for coming. He gestured to the chair across from him. I know this isn't easy. Nothing about this is easy, Frank. He slid the envelope across the table. I found these in Ryan's old room at our house. He's been retrieving things from our files. Inside were more bank statements, investment records, power of attorney documents. All with Ryan's signature. All dated months before the Morrison case began. He planned this, I whispered. All of it. There's more. Frank's voice cracked slightly. Sarah Morrison isn't just his client's wife. She's his college girlfriend. They reconnected when her husband hired him. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too exposed. Does Deborah know? She suspects. But she'll never admit it. Frank straightened his shoulders. I'm not here to defend him, Brooke. I'm here to warn you. Ryan's always been strategic. Even as a child. He doesn't lose well. What are you saying? I'm saying be careful. He's already trying to access your old accounts, your previous job records. He's building a case. Against me? I almost laughed. I'm not the one committing fraud. No, but you're the one who can expose it. Frank stood up. Whatever you're planning, do it fast. And Brooke? He paused. I'm sorry. For all of it. I watched him leave, the envelope heavy in my hands. My phone buzzed, Elena checking in. But another message caught my eye. An email notification. Account access alert, login attempt from unknown device. Then another, password reset requested. And another, security questions changed. Ryan wasn't just building a case. He was trying to erase me. I pulled out my phone, dialing Elena's number. Remember that lawyer friend of yours? The one who specializes in financial crimes? Lucas? Yeah, why? Tell him I need to meet. Today. I gathered my things, already moving. And Elena? Tell him to bring everything he has on the Morrison case. All of it. The game was changing. Ryan wanted to play dirty. Fine. But he'd forgotten one thing, I had nothing left to lose. And everything to prove. Lucas Reed's office felt like neutral territory, though the stack of Morrison case files between us was anything but neutral. He studied the documents I brought, his expression growing darker with each page. This isn't just fraud, he said finally. This is a calculated scheme spanning years. Ryan's been planning this since before he even took the Morrison case. Can we prove it? We can do better. He pulled out a USB drive. Remember that ethics investigation at Ryan's firm last year? The one that mysteriously went away. He plugged it in, turning his monitor toward me. It never really went away. The screen filled with more documents, internal memos, complaint files, settlement agreements. All carefully buried, all involving Ryan. Sarah Morrison wasn't his first affair with a client, Lucas continued. Just his most ambitious. My phone buzzed, Ryan again. This time with a different tone, I know you're meeting with Lucas Reed. Think carefully about your next move. He's watching me. I showed Lucas the message. Good. Lucas smiled grimly. Let him watch. It'll make this next part more interesting. He outlined the plan, each step more audacious than the last. By the time he finished, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from possibility. It's risky, he warned. If we're wrong about any of this. We're not. I stood up, gathering the files. But I need to do something first. Elena was waiting outside in her car. Well? Drive me home. Are you insane? Ryan. Won't be there. It's Thursday. Board meeting until 7. I checked my watch. We have 2 hours. The house looked exactly as I'd left it, except for one detail, my jewelry box, now carefully restored to the vanity, every piece in place. Including both pearl earrings. He's trying to gaslight you, Elena said, watching me examine them. Make you doubt what you saw. No. I picked up the earrings. He's trying to prove he can fix anything. Control anything. I dropped them into my pocket. Including me. We worked quickly, gathering what I needed, documents from Ryan's home office, backup drives, old photos. Evidence of the life he'd carefully constructed and was now desperately trying to preserve. A car door slammed outside. Shit, Elena hissed. He's early. Go, I pushed her toward the back door. Take everything. I'll handle this. Brooke. Trust me. Ryan found me sitting at his desk, calm as Sunday dinner. You're home. Temporarily. I smiled, the way he'd taught me, pleasant, unrevealing. Just getting some things in order. By breaking into my office. He moved closer, trying to intimidate. Going through my files. Meeting with Lucas Reed. You taught me well, Ryan. Document everything. Trust no one. Remember. Whatever you think you know. I know enough. I stood, matching his stance. About Sarah. About the other women. About your parents' money. The question is, what do you want everyone else to know? His mask slipped, just for a moment. Are you threatening me? No, darling. I'm negotiating. I pulled out the pearl earrings, set them on his desk. You have until Sunday dinner to tell your parents everything. Or I will. They'll never believe you. Maybe not. But the ethics board will. And so will the police. I moved past him, pausing at the door. Oh, and Ryan. I'm keeping my house key. For now. Why are you doing this? His voice cracked. We could fix this. Because you didn't just betray me, Ryan. You tried to erase me. I turned back one last time. Now I'm returning the favor. Elena was waiting around the corner, engine running. As we pulled away, I saw Ryan through the office window, standing exactly where I'd left him, holding those damned earrings. You okay? Elena asked. I checked my phone, one new message from Lucas, everything's in place. Ready when you are. I'm perfect, I replied, to both of them. Sunday dinner's going to be interesting. The pearls in my pocket felt lighter now. No longer evidence of betrayal, but ammunition for what was coming. Ryan wanted to play chess. Fine. But he'd forgotten who taught him how to lose. Sunday dinner arrived with storm clouds and the weight of inevitability. I walked into the Davis family home for what I knew would be the last time. Carrying a folder that felt heavier than all my years of marriage combined. Deborah's perfect table setting screamed of denial, her best china, crystal glasses. Everything arranged as if normalcy could be forced through proper placement. Brooke. Ryan stood as I entered, his lawyer's smile firmly in place. We weren't sure you'd come. And miss family dinner? I took my usual seat, noting how Frank's hands trembled slightly on his water glass. Wouldn't dream of it. Well, Deborah bustled in with her pot roast, isn't this nice? All of us together again. The silence that followed felt like a noose tightening. Ryan watched me, waiting. He thought he knew what was coming. He'd prepared for it, probably had counter-arguments ready for every accusation. "Sarah sends her regards," I said quietly, cutting into my meat. Ryan's fork clattered against his plate. Deborah froze mid-pour. "I ran into her yesterday," I continued. "At the bank, actually. She was quite surprised to see me there. Almost as surprised as when I showed her the transfer records." "Brooke," Ryan started. "Did you know," I turned to Frank, "that Sarah Morrison was Ryan's college girlfriend? Before he married me. Such a romantic reunion story. Though I suppose her husband didn't think so." "That's enough." Ryan's voice cracked like a whip. "No, it's not." I pulled out my folder. "Would you like to tell them about the money, Ryan? Or should I?" "What money?" Deborah's voice was barely a whisper. I slid documents across the table, bank statements, transfer records, emails. "Your retirement fund, Deborah. The one Ryan's been managing. Did you check the balance lately?" Frank picked up a statement, his military posture crumbling as he read. "Son. It's not what it looks like." Ryan stood, desperate now. "I can explain everything. Like you explained the ethics investigation." I kept my voice steady. "Or the other client affairs. Or how about?" The slap caught me off guard, Deborah's hand connecting with my cheek with surprising force. "How dare you? In my house?" "Mother," Ryan reached for her, but she shrugged him off. "No. I won't listen to these lies. These accusations against my son are true." Frank's voice cut through her hysteria. He held up another document. "The signatures. The dates. It's all here." "Frank, please." "How much?" Frank's question fell like a hammer. "How much did you take?" Ryan's facade cracked. "I can fix this. I just need time." "Time for what?" I stood slowly. "To hide more money. To destroy more evidence. To erase more people who get in your way." "I never." "You tried to erase me, Ryan. My accounts, my history, my identity, all mysteriously compromised this week. But you forgot something." I pulled out my phone, showed them the screen. "Lucas Reed sends his regards. And so does the ethics board." The room tilted sideways as Ryan lunged, not at me, but at the folder. Papers scattered like confetti, Deborah screamed, Frank's water glass shattered on the floor. When the chaos settled, Ryan held a single sheet of paper, his hands shaking. "The divorce papers. Already signed." "It's over," I said quietly. "The board has everything. The police have everything. Sarah Morrison has everything. You bitch." Deborah's voice trembled. "You've destroyed this family." "No, Deborah. Your son did that." I gathered my purse, stepping carefully around the broken glass. "Check your accounts. All of them. Then decide who really betrayed this family." I made it to my car before my hands started shaking. My phone buzzed. "Elena, done?" Through the dining room window, I could see them, Frank holding the documents, Deborah crying. Ryan standing alone in the wreckage of his perfect life. "Almost," I typed back. "One more thing to do." I pulled out the pearl earrings, my final piece of evidence, my last act of revenge. Tomorrow they'd be on Sarah Morrison's doorstep, along with copies of everything. Let her explain that to her divorce lawyer. Sometimes karma needs a little help. The law firm's parking garage felt like neutral ground at midnight. Ryan stood between two cars, his perfect suit wrinkled, his lawyer's mask finally cracking. Behind him, Sarah Morrison emerged from the shadows, clutching her designer purse like a shield. "You wanted to talk," I said. "So talk." "This is insane, Brooke." Ryan stepped forward. We can still fix this. All of it. Fix what exactly? I glanced at Sarah. The fraud? The affairs? Or just your reputation? Sarah's perfectly manicured hand trembled. Ryan said you were being unreasonable. Unreasonable? I pulled out my phone, clicked play. Ryan's voice filled the garage, discussing money transfers, fake accounts, plans made years ago. Is that what you call this? Where did you get that? Ryan's voice cracked. Your office. The night I left. Amazing what people say when they think they're alone. I paused the recording. Want to hear the rest? The part about Sarah's husband? Sarah's face went white. What about my husband? Don't, Ryan warned. Why not? Afraid she'll learn how you orchestrated her entire divorce. How you manipulated the settlement to hide money for both of you. That's not, Sarah started. True. I laughed. Check your new offshore account. The one Ryan set up last month. Funny how the amounts match what disappeared from his parents' retirement fund. Ryan lunged for my phone. I stepped back, letting him stumble. Careful. Lucas Reed has copies of everything. One wrong move and it all goes public. You're bluffing. Am I? I nodded toward the garage entrance. Right on cue, Frank's military straight figure appeared, followed by two men in suits. Hello, son. Frank's voice echoed. These gentlemen from the ethics board would like a word. Ryan's face contorted. You brought my father into this? No, Ryan. You did that yourself. I turned to Sarah. They'll want to talk to you too. About the Morrison settlement, the hidden accounts, everything. Sarah's designer bag hit the floor. You promised this wouldn't happen, she hissed at Ryan. You said you had it under control. I did. I do. Ryan reached for her, but she recoiled. Baby, please. Don't baby me. She backed away. My divorce settlement? My accounts? What did you do? What he always does, I answered. Uses people, then erases them when they're no longer useful. The ethics board investigators moved closer. Ryan's eyes darted between them, his father, Sarah, me, looking for an escape route that didn't exist. Brooke, his voice softened, desperate now. Everything I did for us. For our future. No. I stepped closer, close enough to smell his expensive cologne one last time. Everything you did for yourself. And now you get to experience what it feels like to be erased. I pulled out the pearl earrings, his last gift to Sarah, and dropped them at his feet. Your mother wanted me to return these. Apparently, they're family heirlooms. From your grandmother. Sarah's gasp was audible. Ryan's face crumpled. Miss Morrison. One investigator stepped forward. We'll need you to come with us. Wait, Sarah grabbed her bag. I can explain. Save it for the deposition. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Ryan. The divorce papers are already filed. Your signature's been notarized. Funny how cooperative people get when shown the right evidence. Frank moved to his son's side as the investigators closed in. I'm sorry, son. But this ends now. I walked away to the sound of rights being read, Sarah's heels clicking as she fled, and Ryan's world collapsing behind me. Elena waited in her car at the garage entrance. You okay? She asked as I slid into the passenger seat. I watched in the rearview mirror as Ryan was led away, his perfect suit rumpled, his careful plans in ruins. The man who tried to erase me was finally facing erasure himself. I'm free, I said, and for the first time in years, it felt like truth. The courthouse steps felt different this time, no longer intimidating, just stone and concrete beneath my feet. I adjusted my marketing director nameplate, still new enough to make me smile. Elena's company had welcomed me back like I'd never left. Brooke. I turned to find Ryan standing there, his expensive suit replaced by something off the rack. The ethics board investigation had stripped away more than just his law license. The restitution hearing's over, I said. You didn't need to wait. I know. He shifted, uncomfortable in his new skin. I saw Frank there. He wouldn't look at me. Can you blame him? No. He ran a hand through his graying hair. Mother's still not speaking to anyone. The shame, she says. Deborah always did care more about appearances than truth. Like father, like son. His attempt at a smile failed. You look good. Happy. I am. I checked my watch, lunch with Lucas in 20 minutes. Was there something you needed? I wanted to tell you. He pulled something from his pocket, a small velvet box. I found these while packing up the house. Inside lay a pair of simple pearl studs, my first anniversary gift, before the grand gestures and manipulations began. Keep them, I said. They were always yours. The real ones, I mean. He closed the box. Everything else, the other jewelry, the gifts, the life we built, that was all fake. My fake. But these? He set the box on the step between us. These were true. Truth's not really your strong suit, Ryan. I know. But I'm learning. Therapy's helping. He straightened his drugstore tie. I never wanted to erase you, Brooke. I wanted to keep you. I just didn't know how to do that without controlling everything. And now I'm learning how to exist without controlling anything. He glanced at his watch, the Rolex replaced by something practical. Your boyfriend's waiting, isn't he? Lucas? How did you? Small town. People talk. He shrugged. He's a good lawyer. Ethical. Everything I pretended to be. A car horn honked, Elena, right on schedule. Beyond her, I could see Lucas waiting at our usual cafe table, patient and uncomplicated. Goodbye, Ryan. Goodbye, Brooke. He turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not just for what I did, but for who I was. I watched him descend the steps, shoulders squared against the weight of consequences. The velvet box sat between us like a full stop at the end of a very long sentence. I picked it up, feeling its lightness. Inside, the pearl studs caught the sunlight, simple, unadorned, honest in their modesty. Everything our marriage hadn't been. Elena's horn honked again. Through the cafe window, Lucas raised his coffee cup in greeting, no expectations in his smile. I slipped the box into my purse, not quite keeping it, not quite letting go. Some stories don't end with neat conclusions. Sometimes the truest endings are the ones that leave room for questions. The courthouse doors opened behind me, releasing another wave of people into the afternoon sun. Among them, Frank Davis walked alone, his military posture softened by time and disappointment. He nodded as he passed, a gesture somewhere between acknowledgement and approval. We'd both learned the same lesson: sometimes the people we trust most are the ones who teach us how to be stronger by breaking us. I descended the steps, leaving behind the echoes of accusations and revelations. Ahead, Lucas stood to greet me, his smile offering not a fairy tale ending, but something better, a beginning without pretense. The pearl studs pressed against my side, a small weight to remind me that even in revenge, even in justice, there are pieces of truth worth keeping. Not as trophies, but as lessons in what to value and what to leave behind. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in destroying your opponent, but in walking away with your own truth intact.
I stared at the invitation card in my hands, tracing my fingers over the embossed letters. Another celebration of someone else's perfect life. The thought of spending 3 hours at Jessica's engagement party made my stomach turn, but Megan wouldn't let me skip it. "You need to get out," she'd said, as if emerging from my cocoon of Netflix and takeout would magically fix everything. "You made it." Megan's voice cut through the party's ambient noise. She pulled me into a hug that smelled of expensive perfume and concern. "And you look... well, you're here. Thanks for the ringing endorsement." I smoothed down my black dress, wondering if I should have worn something more colorful. Less funeral chic. "Sophie, honey, you know what I mean." She pressed a glass of wine into my hand. "Just try to enjoy yourself. Talk to people. Who knows? Maybe you'll meet someone interesting. Because that worked out so well last time." The wine tasted bitter, but I drank it anyway. The party swirled around me in a blur of forced laughter and clinking glasses. I found myself drifting toward the edges, watching couples lean into each other, share private jokes, steal quick kisses. Each display of affection felt like a personal attack, a reminder of what I'd lost, or maybe never really had. "You look about as thrilled to be here as I am." I turned to find a man leaning against the wall beside me, his tie slightly loosened, holding a beer like it was a lifeline. Something about his casual disarray made me smile. "That obvious, huh? Well, you've been staring at that plant for 5 minutes like it personally offended you." He gestured toward the potted fern I'd apparently been glaring at. "I'm Ryan." "Sophie." I took another sip of wine. "And that plant did offend me. It's being all green and alive while my succulents keep committing suicide." He laughed, and something in my chest loosened slightly. "Aw, a serial plant killer. Should I be concerned?" "Only if you're photosynthetic." The conversation flowed easier than I expected. Ryan worked in IT, loved terrible sci-fi movies, and had strong opinions about pineapple on pizza. He didn't ask why I was alone at the party, didn't try to fill every silence with meaningless chatter. It felt comfortable. "Want to get out of here?" he asked after our third drink. "There's a great burger place around the corner. Real food, no tiny appetizers that leave you hunting for crumbs." I hesitated. Megan's warning voice echoed in my head, "Too soon, Sophie. Give yourself time to heal." But Ryan's smile held no pressure, no hidden agenda. Just a simple invitation to escape this suffocating parade of happiness. "You know what?" "Yes." I set down my empty glass. "Lead the way." As we slipped out of the party, I caught Megan's eye across the room. She raised an eyebrow, and I gave her a small wave. Later, she'd demand details, worry about my judgment, remind me of all the reasons I shouldn't jump into anything new. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was making a mistake. But watching Ryan navigate through the crowded streets, pointing out ridiculous shop names and making up stories about passing strangers, I felt something I hadn't in months: possibility. I didn't know then that this moment, this simple decision to follow a stranger into the night, would set in motion events that would shatter my world all over again. That Ryan's easy smile concealed depths I couldn't begin to imagine. That sometimes the most dangerous traps are the ones that feel like escape routes. But that night, I just wanted to feel something other than broken. And Ryan, he was very good at making things feel whole again. At least for a while. 6 months flew by like a highlight reel of perfect moments. Ryan and I fell into an easy rhythm, late-night conversations that stretched until dawn, spontaneous road trips to nowhere. Inside jokes that made strangers stare when we burst out laughing in public. He had a way of making everything feel lighter, more vibrant. "You're different," Megan said over coffee one morning. "Happier." But what? I stirred my latte, watching the foam swirl. "I don't know. Sometimes the way he looks at you. It's like he's memorizing you. Like he's afraid you'll disappear. I laughed it off, but her words stuck with me. Maybe because I'd noticed it too, those moments when Ryan's smile would fade, and something darker would flicker across his face. But then he'd pull me close, whisper something ridiculous in my ear, and the moment would pass. The night he proposed, we were arguing about pizza toppings. "Pineapple is an abomination," he declared, waving a slice like a conductor's baton. "It's a violation of natural law," says the man who puts ranch dressing on everything. "That's different." He set down his pizza, suddenly serious. "You know what else is different? The way you've changed everything in my life." Before I could process the shift in conversation, he was on one knee, holding out a ring that caught the dim light of my kitchen. "Marry me, Sophie. Be my partner in crime, my fellow pizza critic, my—" "Yes," I interrupted, my heart racing. "Yes to everything except the anti-pineapple agenda." The ring slid onto my finger perfectly. Too perfectly, I'd realize later. As if he'd planned this moment down to the smallest detail. That night, lying in bed, Ryan traced patterns on my arm. "We should meet my mother," he said quietly. "She'll want to help with the wedding." "Of course." I turned to face him. "Tell me about her." His hand stilled. "She's traditional. Protective. Dad left when I was young, so it was just us for a long time." Something in his voice made me prop myself up on an elbow. "You don't talk about her much." "Not much to say." He pulled me back down, nuzzling my neck. "She'll love you. Everyone loves you." Meeting Linda Carter was like walking into a time capsule. Her house was immaculate, every surface gleaming, every photo frame perfectly aligned. She hugged me with practiced warmth. "So lovely to finally meet you," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Ryan's told me so much. All good things, I hope." I laughed, but it felt hollow in the pristine living room. "Of course." She patted Ryan's cheek as she passed. "My boy only sees the good in people. It's his greatest strength. And sometimes his greatest weakness." Ryan tensed beside me. I felt his fingers twitch against my back. Over dinner, Linda dominated the conversation, peppering me with questions about my family, my job, my plans for children. Each answer seemed to disappoint her slightly. "Marketing." She raised an eyebrow. "Such an unstable field these days. And you travel for work." "Sometimes," I admitted. "But Ryan needs stability," she cut in. "Structure. After everything with his father. Mother." Ryan's voice carried a warning edge I'd never heard before. "I'm just saying, dear." She reached across the table, straightening his collar with practiced fingers. "We have to be careful, don't we?" The drive home was silent. I watched Ryan's knuckles whiten on the steering wheel. "I'm sorry about her," he finally said. "She means well." "It's fine." I touched his arm. "She loves you." He laughed, but it sounded wrong. "Yeah. She does." That night, I caught him staring at his phone, thumbs hovering over the keyboard. When he noticed me watching, he quickly locked the screen. "Work stuff," he said, too casually. "Tom needs help with a project." I nodded, ignoring the knot forming in my stomach. Later, I'd remember this moment as the first crack in our perfect story, the instant when doubt crept in like a shadow at sunset. Subtle but undeniable. But for now, I curled into his side, breathing in his familiar scent, telling myself that love was enough. That some stories really do have happy endings. I was wrong about that too. The dishes had been sitting in the sink for 3 days. 3 days of walking past them, of watching Ryan grab clean mugs from the cabinet while dirty ones festered below. I'd stopped counting how many times I'd asked him to help with housework. His promises had become as stale as the coffee rings in those abandoned cups. "I thought you were going to handle those," I said, watching him scroll through his phone on the couch. Later. He didn't look up. "I'm dealing with a work crisis." The same excuse he'd used yesterday. And the day before. I picked up his discarded socks from the floor, fighting the urge to throw them at his head. "Tom needs help with the server migration," he added, as if reading my thoughts. "It's important. More important than our agreement about sharing responsibilities." He finally looked up, his expression shifting into that wounded puppy look I'd once found endearing. "Come on, Sophie. You know how crazy work's been lately. And my work isn't crazy. I managed to do laundry between client calls yesterday. That's different." He set down his phone. "You're just better at this stuff. More organized." The word hit me like a slap. Better at it? Or just more willing to do it while you play helpless? "I'm not playing anything." His voice took on that edge I'd been hearing more frequently. "Why are you making such a big deal about dishes?" "Because it's not about the dishes." The words exploded out of me. "It's about respect. About being partners instead of me being your replacement mother." His face darkened. "Don't bring my mother into this." "Why not? She's already here in every other way." I gestured at the living room, where he'd arranged the furniture exactly as Linda had suggested. "God forbid we make any decision without consulting her first. She's trying to help." He stood up, towering over me. "Unlike some people, who just criticize everything I do. When do you do anything?" The words tasted bitter. "Besides work and text Tom at all hours." Something flickered across his face. Guilt. Fear. But it vanished so quickly I might have imagined it. "I need some air." He grabbed his keys. "Call Linda if you want help cleaning. She'd love to show you how it's done properly." The door slammed behind him. I stood in the silence, surrounded by evidence of his passive presence: half-empty water glasses, abandoned charging cables. A trail of emotional breadcrumbs leading nowhere. My phone buzzed. "Megan. How's married bliss?" she asked when I answered. "Remember when you said something felt off about Ryan?" "Which time?" I sank onto the couch. "He's different now. Or maybe he's exactly the same and I'm finally seeing it clearly." "What happened?" "Nothing. Everything." I picked at a loose thread on the cushion, another task Ryan had promised to fix. "It's like living with a ghost who leaves dirty dishes instead of rattling chains." "Have you talked to him about it?" "I've tried. He either deflects or runs to Linda." The thread came loose in my hand. "Did I tell you she called yesterday to remind me about his favorite breakfast? Apparently, I'm not cooking his eggs right." "Jesus." Megan paused. "Sophie, remember what happened with Mark? How you kept making excuses for him until..." "This is different," I cut her off, even as doubt gnawed at my certainty. "Ryan's not Mark. He's just struggling with something. And you're not his therapist." Her voice softened. "Or his mother, no matter what Linda thinks." After we hung up, I wandered into the kitchen. The dishes seemed to mock me, a porcelain monument to broken promises. I reached for the sponge, then stopped. Instead, I took a photo of the mess and sent it to Ryan with a simple message: "Either these are done when I get home from work tomorrow, or we need to have a serious conversation about our future." His response came hours later: "Sorry. Got caught up with Tham. We'll handle it tomorrow. I stared at those words until they blurred, remembering how he used to send me random messages throughout the day. Jokes, heart emojis. Pictures of dogs he saw on his lunch break. When had Tham become more important than us? The answer would come soon enough, though not in any way I could have predicted. Sometimes the biggest betrayals hide in the smallest details, like dishes in a sink. Or late-night texts to a coworker who isn't really a coworker at all. The credit card statement arrived on a Tuesday. I almost missed it among the usual bills and junk mail, but Ryan's nervous glance as I opened the envelope caught my attention. $300 at La Maison, that upscale French restaurant downtown. Another $200 at Jensen's Jewelers. Dates I'd been working late, supposedly while he was debugging with Tham. Want to explain these charges? I slid the statement across the kitchen counter. He barely glanced at it. Work expenses. I'll get reimbursed. Funny. I called your office yesterday about the company holiday party. Sharon said you haven't submitted an expense report in months. The color drained from his face. You called my office. After you missed another couples therapy session. I watched him fidget with his wedding ring. Tham covered for you. Said you were in a meeting. Except you told me you were working from home that day. Sophie. Don't. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Just tell me who she is. There's no one. He reached for my hand. I pulled away. You're being paranoid. Like your mother when. Don't you dare bring my mother into this. The rage surprised me with its intensity. You lost that right when you started lying to my face. His phone buzzed on the counter. We both stared at it. The preview notification showed a message from Tham, and wants to know if you're still on for. Ryan lunged for the phone, but I was faster. The full message burned into my brain, and wants to know if you're still on for dinner. She's wearing that dress you liked. It's not what you think. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it hurt. Emily's just a friend from work. Tham's friend, actually. We're all just friends. I laughed at the sound sharp enough to make him flinch. Is that what you told Linda too? Something dark flashed across his face. Leave my mother out of this. Why? She's already involved, isn't she? The pieces were falling into place. All those Sunday brunches when I was traveling for work. Those long phone calls about your childhood memories. She's been covering for you this whole time. She's protecting me. His voice cracked. She understands that sometimes people make mistakes. Mistakes. I held up the credit card statement. This isn't a mistake, Ryan. This is a choice. Multiple choices, made over and over. He slumped against the counter, suddenly looking smaller. I never meant to hurt you. That's the problem. You never mean to do anything. Things just happen to you, right? Poor Ryan, always the victim, never responsible. His phone buzzed again. Another message from Tham. Emily's getting impatient. Should I tell her you're not coming? Tell her yourself. I tossed the phone at him. I'm sure she'll understand. She probably knows all about your mother's protection by now. Sophie, please. He caught my arm as I turned to leave. We can fix this. I'll go to therapy. I'll. Let go of me. My voice was ice. Or I'll call Linda right now and tell her exactly why her perfect son is about to lose another relationship. He released me like I'd burned him. We stood there, the kitchen counter between us like a battlefield, years of lies and enabling scattered like shrapnel. I'm staying at Megan's tonight. I grabbed my keys. Don't call me. Don't text me. And definitely don't send Tham to make excuses for you. At the door, I paused. You know what's funny? I actually felt guilty for suspecting you. For thinking you might be like Mark. Turns out you're worse. At least he had the decency to admit what he was. I love you, he whispered. No, Ryan. You love the idea of me. The perfect wife who'd never question you, never challenge you. Just like Linda taught you to expect. I left him standing there, surrounded by the evidence of his betrayal. My phone lit up with notifications, Linda's number, then Tom's, then Ryan's. I blocked them all. Later, Megan would ask if I was okay. I'd tell her I was fine, but the truth was more complicated. I wasn't just hurt or angry. I was awakening to a cold, clear rage that demanded more than just walking away. Ryan and Linda had written this story together. Now it was my turn to write the ending. The house was spotless when I returned from my business trip. Not just tidy, sanitized. Every surface gleamed, every pillow sat at a perfect angle, like a showroom waiting for potential buyers. The air smelled of lemon cleaner and lies. My suitcase wheels echoed on the hardwood as I moved through our staged perfection. A woman's scarf lay coiled on the entry table, not mine. Designer label. The kind Ryan always said we couldn't afford. I picked it up, the silk sliding through my fingers like water. Like truth. My phone buzzed. Linda. Sophie, dear. Ryan mentioned you were coming home today. I thought we could have dinner. Whose scarf is this? My voice sounded foreign, distant. A pause. Too long. What scarf? The Hermes scarf on my entry table. The one that costs more than our monthly mortgage. Oh. Another pause. I must have left it when I came to help Ryan straighten up. He mentioned you like things. Particular. The lie hung between us, as delicate as the scarf in my hands. Funny. The receipt still attached. Dated yesterday. Sophie. I ended the call, letting the silence wash over me. In the kitchen, a wine glass sat in the dish rack, lipstick stains in a shade I'd never wear. The garbage was empty, but a crumpled receipt by the can caught my eye. La Maison again. Dinner for two, last night. My phone lit up with Ryan's face. I let it ring. The bedroom door creaked open. Everything was perfect here too, fresh sheets, hospital corners, his dress shirts hanging with military precision. But the air felt wrong. Perfumed. The bathroom counter held the final evidence, a long dark hair caught in my hairbrush. Mine were blonde. Ryan's key turned in the lock downstairs. I heard him calling my name, his footsteps on the stairs. I sat on our perfectly made bed, holding the brush like a weapon. Sophie. You're home early. He appeared in the doorway, tie loosened, smile faltering as he saw my face. I was going to pick you up from the airport. Like you picked up Emily last night. The name hit him like a physical blow. Who? Please. I stood, brush still in hand. Don't insult what's left of us with more lies. It's not, he stopped, seeing the scarf dangling from my other hand. I can explain. Can you explain the wine glass? The receipt. The fucking Hermes scarf that costs more than you said we could afford for my birthday. You don't understand. He stepped forward. I stepped back. Emily's going through a rough time. Her husband. Is she married too? The laugh that escaped me sounded hysterical. Did Linda help you pick her out? Someone suitably broken for you to fix. Leave my mother out of this. Why? She's already in it. up to her enabling neck. I threw the scarf at him. Did she help you clean up too? Make everything perfect before the wife came home. His face changed, something dark and familiar crossing it. You're being hysterical. Just like when. When what? When I suspected something was wrong. When I asked why you were working late every Thursday. When I wondered why Tom suddenly couldn't look me in the eye. Each question landed like a blow. He retreated, back hitting the doorframe. Sophie, please. We can work through this. I'll go to counseling. I'll. Stop. My voice cracked. Just stop pretending you want to fix this. You had months to fix it. Years. His phone buzzed in his pocket. We both froze. Answer it, I said. It's probably Emily, wondering why you're late for dinner. I love you, he whispered. No. I placed the hairbrush carefully on the dresser, aligning it perfectly with the edge. You love having someone to blame when things go wrong. Someone to clean up after. Someone to lie to. I walked past him, down the stairs, through the pristine rooms that had never really been ours. Behind me, his phone kept buzzing, a persistent reminder of promises about to be broken. Outside, the evening air felt clean. Real. I got in my car, hands steady on the wheel, and called Megan. I need your help, I said when she answered. I need to destroy him. The silence on the other end wasn't judgment. It was understanding. Come over, she said. We'll make a plan. The divorce papers sat between us like a landmine. Ryan's lawyer kept glancing at his phone while mine reviewed the terms one last time. The conference room felt too small, too sterile for the death of a marriage. Mrs. Carter, if you'll sign here. Miller, I corrected. I'm keeping my name. Ryan flinched. Good. His signature came first, practiced, perfect, just like his lies. I watched the pen move across the page, remembering how he'd signed our marriage license with that same flourish. When it was my turn, I made my signature sharp, angular. A weapon. There's one more thing. I pulled out a USB drive. Evidence of financial misconduct at Carter Technologies. Ryan's head snapped up. What? Interesting emails between you and the accounting department. Creative expense reports. That sort of thing. His lawyer leaned forward. Miss Miller, if you're attempting to blackmail. Not blackmail. Insurance. I slid the drive across the table. Everything's already backed up. I just thought Ryan should know what I found while cleaning our perfect house. The color drained from Ryan's face. You wouldn't. Like you wouldn't sleep with Emily. Like you wouldn't let your mother orchestrate our entire marriage. Sophie, please. His voice cracked. Think about what this would do to the company. To my career. I have. For 3 weeks, 4 days, and, I checked my watch, 6 hours. About as long as you thought about our marriage before destroying it. His lawyer whispered something urgent. Ryan ignored him. What do you want? Nothing. I stood, smoothing my skirt. Consider it a parting gift. A reminder that perfect facades crack eventually. Outside, Megan waited in her car. How'd it go? He signed. I buckled my seatbelt, hands shaking. And I gave him the drive. Empty. Loaded. Every fraudulent expense report, every manipulated budget. 3 years of creative accounting, all tied to his employee ID. Jesus. Megan pulled into traffic. What if he goes to the police? With what evidence? An empty threat from his bitter ex-wife. I laughed, but it sounded hollow. Besides, Linda would never let him risk the family reputation. My phone buzzed. Linda's number. "You vindictive little," she started. "Careful, Linda. Wouldn't want to say something unladylike. He trusted you. And I trusted him. Funny how that worked out. I'll destroy you." Her voice trembled with rage. "I'll make sure you never work in this town again." I cut her off. "Check your email. I sent you something interesting about Ryan's special project fund. The one that paid for Emily's gifts." The line went dead. Megan glanced over. "You okay?" "No." My voice broke. I thought this would feel better. Like winning. It's not about winning anymore, is it? I don't know what it's about. I stared out the window, watching the city blur past. I keep waiting to feel something besides empty. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Sophie. A woman's voice, familiar from voicemails I'd found. "It's Emily. We need to talk." The world tilted sideways. About what? About Ryan. About what he did to both of us. She paused. "And about what he's planning to do now." "What do you mean?" "He's not who we thought he was. Either of us." Her voice shook. "Meet me at La Maison tonight. 7 o'clock. Come alone." The line went dead before I could respond. Megan pulled over. "Who was that?" "Emily." I showed her the call log. "She wants to meet." "It's a trap." "Probably." I closed my eyes, remembering the perfect house, the perfect lies. But what if it's not? "Sophie. I need to know." I opened my eyes, decision made. "Drop me at my apartment. I'll take my own car." "This isn't how revenge is supposed to work," Megan said softly. "Maybe it's not about revenge anymore." I touched the divorce papers in my bag. Maybe it's about truth. The truth, I'd learn later, was far worse than any revenge I could have planned. But sitting there, watching the city lights come on, I still believed in answers. In closure. In the possibility that understanding why might hurt less than not knowing it all. I was wrong about that too. Emily wasn't at La Maison. Instead, I found Megan waiting at the bar, her face ashen. "Ryan's in the hospital," she said before I could speak. "Psychiatric hold." "He tried to," she stopped, hands trembling around her wine glass. The world tilted sideways. "When?" "An hour ago. Tom found him in the office." She pulled out her phone, showing me a text. "He left notes. For you, Linda. Emily." My revenge fantasy crumbled like ash in my mouth. "Is he stable?" "But Sophie, there's more." She glanced around the restaurant. "Emily's there too. She's been admitted for 3 days." The pieces clicked together with nauseating clarity. They're in the same facility. Different wings. She. Megan hesitated. "She tried to leave him last week. He didn't take it well." The drive to Riverside Psychiatric Center felt endless. Security checked my ID twice before letting me through. The hall smelled of industrial cleaner and despair. Emily sat in the common room, wearing hospital scrubs, her designer confidence stripped away. Purple bruises ringed her wrist. "He said I was just like you," she said when I sat down. "Strong. Independent. In need of fixing." "Did he hurt you?" "Not physically. Not at first." She touched her wrist. "He just got in my head." Made me doubt everything. Then when I tried to leave. Emily. Linda's voice cut through the room like a blade. She stood in the doorway, perfectly coiffed even here. What lies are you telling now? The truth, I said, standing. For once, let's all tell the truth. Linda's mask cracked. You did this. Both of you. You pushed him too hard, expected too much. We expected basic human decency, Emily snapped. Not to be manipulated, gaslit, controlled. He loves deeply. Too deeply sometimes. Linda's voice wavered. After his father left. Stop. I stepped closer. Just stop. This isn't about his father. Or us. It's about you. How dare you? You taught him this. The words burned like acid. Taught him to manipulate, to play victim, to blame everyone else. And when that didn't work, you cleaned up his messes. Like the restraining order his college girlfriend filed. The complaints at his last job. Linda went white. How did you? I'm good at research. Better at revenge. I pulled out my phone, showing her the documents. But this isn't revenge anymore. It's intervention. He needs help, Emily added softly. Real help. Not enablers. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Miss Miller. Mr. Carter's asking for you. Linda moved to follow. I blocked her path. No. For once, you're going to let him face consequences. Ryan looked small in the hospital bed, wrists bandaged, eyes hollow. When he saw me, something flickered across his face, shame. Relief. Fear. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know. I didn't mean. You never do. I sat in the visitor's chair. That's the problem, Ryan. You never mean to hurt anyone. You just do. Help me. His voice cracked. Please. Like you always do. No. The word felt like freedom. I'm not here to help you. Or hurt you. I'm here to say goodbye. Sophie. Emily's down the hall. I watched him flinch. She's not helping you either. Neither is Linda. Tears slid down his face. Then why are you here? Because someone needs to tell you the truth. You're not the victim here. You're not the hero. You're just a man who never learned to take responsibility for his actions. I love you, he tried. No. You love the idea of being loved. There's a difference. I stood. Get help, Ryan. Real help. Not for me, not for Emily, not for Linda. For yourself. At the door, I paused. I'm sending copies of everything, the financial records, the restraining orders, everything, to the hospital staff. They need to know what they're dealing with. That's your revenge. His laugh sounded broken. More exposure. No. My revenge was letting you face yourself. I met his eyes one last time. Goodbye, Ryan. In the hallway, Emily and Linda waited, two women broken by the same man in different ways. We looked at each other, understanding passing between us without words. Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. Sometimes it's about truth. And sometimes truth is the hardest revenge of all. The letter arrived on a crisp autumn morning, hand-delivered to my office. Ryan's precise handwriting on the envelope made my fingers tremble as I opened it. Inside, a single page filled with words I'd once longed to hear. I'm starting to understand what you meant about facing myself. The doctors say I'm making progress. Mother hasn't visited in weeks, her choice, not mine. Maybe that's progress too. Emily dropped the charges. She's stronger than either of us knew. Like you. I keep thinking about that night we met, how you said you'd never trust anyone again. I made you break that promise to yourself. I'm sorry for that most of all. I folded the letter, tucking it into my desk drawer without responding. Outside my window, the city sprawled beneath gray skies, unchanged yet completely different from the view I'd had when this all began. My phone buzzed. Megan. You busy? She asked. Emily's downstairs. My heart stuttered. Here. She wants to talk. About the support group. The elevator ride felt endless. Emily waited in the lobby, looking both familiar and strange, stronger, somehow. Scarred but standing. I'm starting one, she said without preamble. A support group. For women like us. Like us. The ones who survived men like Ryan. And women like Linda. She pulled out a business card. We meet Thursdays. If you're interested. I studied the card. Why me? Because you did what I couldn't. You saw through him without losing yourself. She touched her wrist, where the bruises had faded but the memory hadn't. And because sometimes revenge isn't enough. Sometimes we need to turn it into something else. My phone buzzed again. Linda's number. Take it, Emily said. I'll wait. Linda's voice sounded older, tired. Ryan's being released next week. I know. The letter's weight pressed against my desk upstairs. He wants to see you. No. A pause. Sophie. You don't get to ask me for anything anymore, Linda. Neither does he. He's changed. Maybe. But I have too. I watched Emily through the lobby windows, her reflection overlapping with mine. Goodbye, Linda. I hung up before she could respond. She still thinks she can fix him, Emily said when I returned. She can't. No. Emily smiled sadly. But maybe we can fix what he broke in us. Upstairs, I pulled out Ryan's letter again. Below it in the drawer lay the evidence I'd gathered, financial records, restraining orders, a history of manipulation carefully documented. My perfect revenge, never used. Megan appeared in my doorway. You okay? I thought revenge would feel like winning. I held up the letter. But this feels better. What does? Living well. I dropped the letter in the shredder, watching it disappear. Moving forward. The support group. I picked up Emily's card. Maybe. But first, I need to do something. The storage unit felt smaller than I remembered. Boxes of our shared life waited in neat rows, photos, wedding gifts, memories carefully preserved. I'd kept them out of spite, thinking someday I'd want to remember. Now, watching the donation truck load them up, I felt lighter with each box that disappeared. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from an unknown number. Thank you. For showing me the truth. I deleted it without responding. Some truths don't need acknowledgement. Some revenge is better left unfinished, transforming into something else entirely. Outside, Emily waited in her car. Ready? For what? The future. She smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. It's Thursday. I got in, leaving the storage unit and its ghosts behind. We drove through the city, past La Maison, past the house Ryan and I had shared, past all the places where I'd lost and found myself. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's simply living, breathing, moving forward. Sometimes it's helping others do the same. And sometimes, in the end, that's enough.
The divorce papers sat on the kitchen counter like a loaded gun. Next to them, Caleb's handwriting mocked me from a pale yellow post-it note. I need solitude to find myself. Don't try to contact me. I'm sorry. 15 years of marriage reduced to 23 words. I picked up the note, crumpled it, then smoothed it out again. The words hadn't changed. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone, muscle memory taking over as I dialed his number. The number you have reached is no longer in service. Of course. He'd thought of everything. I grabbed the bottle of Cabernet we'd been saving for our anniversary next month, uncorked it, and poured myself a generous glass. The rich liquid caught the afternoon light streaming through my kitchen window. Our wedding photo still hung on the wall, his academic regalia making him look distinguished, important. Professor Caleb Thompson, beloved educator, devoted husband. What a crock of shit. My phone buzzed. Natalie's name flashed on the screen. You're late for drinks, she said. Everything okay? He left. The words felt foreign in my mouth. Caleb left. What? I'm coming over. No, I'll come to you. I need to get out of this house. 20 minutes later, I walked into O'Malley's. Natalie waved from our usual corner booth, her face etched with concern. I dropped into the seat across from her, sliding the divorce papers onto the sticky table. Jesus Christ, she whispered, flipping through the pages. No warning. Nothing. Just a post-it note. Like I'm a reminder on his fucking calendar. The waitress appeared. Your usual, Vera. Double tonight, Rosa. Actually, make it 2 doubles. Rosa's eyes darted between me and the papers on the table. Coming right up, honey. Natalie reached across and squeezed my hand. What are you going to do? Sign them, I guess. What choice do I have? I pulled my hand away, needing the distance. 15 years, Nat. 15 years and he couldn't even say goodbye to my face. There has to be more to this. People don't just. Apparently, they do. I caught Rosa's eye and mouthed, "Thank you," as she set down our drinks. You know what the worst part is? I keep thinking about last week, when he insisted on making dinner. He seemed so normal. Happy, even. Was he planning this the whole time? Just going through the motions? Maybe he's having some kind of breakdown. Remember when Jeff's brother suddenly joined that commune in Oregon? This is different. I took a long sip of whiskey, letting it burn. Caleb's too calculated for that. Too controlled. This isn't impulsive, he planned this. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Hello? Is this Vera Thompson? A young woman's voice, hesitant but determined. Yes, who's this? My name is Jasmine. I used to be one of your husband's students. We need to talk. It's important. Something in her tone made my stomach clench. About what? Not over the phone. Could we meet somewhere? Tomorrow maybe. I looked at Natalie, who was watching me with raised eyebrows. Tomorrow at noon. There's a coffee shop called Bean there on 5th Street. I know it. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. And I'm sorry. The line went dead. Who was that? Natalie asked. One of Caleb's former students. I drained my glass. She says we need to talk. About what? I don't know. I stared at the divorce papers, at his precise signature at the bottom. But I have a feeling I'm about to find out why my husband really left. Rosa appeared with fresh drinks, her dark eyes full of sympathy. On the house, honey. You look like you need it. I didn't argue. Tomorrow would bring answers, but tonight? Tonight I would let myself fall apart, surrounded by the only two people who hadn't abandoned me yet. The hangover hit me like a sledgehammer as I walked into the dental clinic. Rosa's eyes followed me from behind the reception desk, her usual morning snark replaced by something softer. Pity. God, I hated pity. Dr. Matthews wants to see you in his office, she said quietly. Before your first patient. Perfect. Just what I needed before meeting Jasmine at noon, a lecture from my boss about keeping my personal life from affecting my work. As if I had any control over that now. I found him reviewing charts, his reading glasses perched on the edge of his nose. Vera, close the door, please. If this is about yesterday. Caleb called. He removed his glasses, polishing them with his tie. He's requested a leave of absence from the university. Indefinite. He mentioned your situation. My stomach lurched. Of course he'd called my boss before me. Damage control. Always the professor, always 3 steps ahead. I appreciate your concern, Dr. Matthews, but take the week off. Paid leave. Sort things out. I'd rather work. He sighed, that paternal look I'd always hated creeping across his face. The university board is meeting today. There are rumors, Vera. About Caleb. About certain improprieties. The room tilted slightly. What kind of improprieties? Nothing concrete. But given your position here, and our connection to the university's dental program. He spread his hands. Take the week. Please. I walked out in a daze, barely registering Rosa's concerned look as I gathered my things. My phone buzzed. Natalie. You okay? She asked. After last night. Matthews just put me on leave. Apparently, there are rumors about Caleb at the university. A pause. What kind of rumors? I don't know. But I'm meeting his former student in 2 hours. Want to bet they're connected? Want backup? No. I need to do this alone. Being there was quiet when I arrived, just a few students hunched over laptops. I ordered coffee and claimed a corner table, watching the door. At exactly noon, she walked in. Jasmine was younger than I'd expected. Pretty, in that fresh-faced way that made me feel ancient. She clutched her bag like a shield as she approached. Mrs. Thompson. Her voice trembled slightly. Thank you for meeting me. It's just Vera now. Sit. She perched on the edge of her chair, fingers twisting the strap of her bag. I don't know where to start. How about with why my husband left? He found out we were going to come forward. All of us. Ice spread through my chest. All of who? The girls. The ones he. She swallowed hard. It started my sophomore year. He was my advisor. He said I had potential, that he could help my career. Then came the private meetings, the late-night emails, the suggestions that certain arrangements could help my grades. The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. How many? 7 that I know of. Maybe more. She reached into her bag, pulled out a manila envelope. We have proof. Emails, texts, photos. We were going to take it to the board today, but he must have found out somehow. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Screenshots of messages, each more damning than the last. Photos of Caleb with different young women, his hand always somewhere it shouldn't be. Dates spanning years. Years we were married. Why are you showing me this? Because you deserve to know the truth. And because we need your help. She leaned forward, voice dropping. He's not just hiding, Mrs. Thompson. He's starting over. Building something new. Something dangerous. What do you mean? He's gathering followers. Vulnerable students, mostly. Calling it a spiritual retreat or something. But it's just another way to control people. She pulled out her phone, showed me a website. See? He's already got dozens of people believing his enlightenment bullshit. I stared at the screen, at Caleb's serene smile below the header, finding truth through solitude, a journey of self-discovery. Son of a bitch, I whispered. We can stop him. But we need someone he won't expect. Someone who knows him better than anyone. Her eyes met mine. Will you help us? I thought about the post-it note, about 15 years of lies. About 7 young women whose lives he'd tried to destroy. Yes, I said. I'll help you destroy him. The other women gathered in Natalie's living room, their faces a gallery of shared trauma. 6 besides Jasmine, just like she'd said. Young, bright, broken. Each clutching their own manila envelope of evidence against my husband. He always chose the quiet ones, Sarah, a grad student, explained. The ones who needed recommendations, who couldn't afford to lose their scholarships. I paced behind Natalie's couch, the weight of their stories pressing against my chest. And none of you went to the administration. 2 did, Jasmine said. Remember Angela Martinez? The name hit like a slap. The student who had a mental breakdown last year. She tried to report him. Next thing we knew, she was accused of plagiarism. Lost her scholarship, her graduate position, everything. My hands shook as I poured more wine. And the other one? Me, a redhead, Rachel, whispered. He had photos. Said he'd release them if I didn't withdraw my complaint. The doorbell rang. Natalie answered it, returning with Eli. His police uniform was wrinkled, his face tight with concern. Our eyes met across the room, and something in his expression made my stomach drop. We need to talk, he said quietly. Alone. In Natalie's kitchen, he pulled out his phone. Remember that wellness check you asked me to run on Caleb's retreat location? What about it? It's not just a retreat. He showed me a police report. 3 women have gone missing in that area in the past month. All former students. Jesus Christ. The room spun slightly. You think he's? I think he's escalating. The university board meeting spooked him. He's gathering followers, yes, but he's also targeting specific women. Women who could expose him. A text buzzed on my phone. Unknown number. I know what you're planning, Vera. Stop now, or Angela won't be the only cautionary tale. I showed Eli the message. His jaw tightened. He's watching us, I said. Let him. Eli's voice was steel. We can use that. Back in the living room, the women fell silent, watching us. Their fear was palpable, a living thing that filled the room. Change of plans, I announced. We're not just exposing him. We're taking him down. Tonight. Jasmine stood. What do you mean? He's threatening you all through me. But he's made a mistake. I held up my phone. He's given us proof of witness intimidation. And with 7 testimonies, plus evidence. 8, a quiet voice said from the doorway. We turned. Rosa stood there, clutching her own manila envelope. Rosa? My voice cracked. You? 15 years ago. When he was just starting at the university. She stepped forward, shoulders straight. I was his teaching assistant. He destroyed my career before it began. Made sure I'd never teach. The pieces clicked. Rosa's bitterness, her protectiveness of young female patients, her sharp edges. That's why you've always watched out for the interns, I whispered. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I couldn't stop him then. But I can help stop him now. My phone buzzed again. Another text. Last warning, Vera. Walk away, or watch them all burn. I looked around the room, at these women who'd carried their pain in silence for so long. At Rosa, who'd been protecting others while hiding her own scars. At Eli, whose face promised justice. He wants us afraid, I said. Isolated. But together. Together we're stronger than his threats. What's the plan? Sarah asked. I smiled, a cold thing that felt foreign on my face. We give him exactly what he wants, me, alone, coming to beg forgiveness. Except I won't be alone. And there won't be any forgiveness. Eli touched my arm. Vera. No. He thinks he knows me, the quiet, supportive wife. The one who'll keep his secrets. I met each woman's eyes in turn. Let's show him how wrong he is. My phone buzzed one final time. I didn't need to look to know it was him, trying to maintain control. But control, like everything else, was about to slip through his fingers. Ladies, I said, let's go destroy my husband. Eli spread the surveillance photos across his kitchen table while Lucas napped in the next room. The retreat compound sprawled across 20 acres of woodland, a collection of cabins surrounding a main lodge. In every image, young women moved between buildings like sleepwalkers, their faces vacant. They're not prisoners, Eli said, at least not technically. They're there voluntarily. Brainwashed, I corrected, studying a photo of Caleb leading what appeared to be a meditation session. How many? 23 residents. All women, all under 30. He hesitated. And Angela Martinez is there. My head snapped up. The student who tried to report him. She's alive. Barely functioning, according to our informant. He's got them all on some strict regimen, meditation, fasting, isolation periods. Classic cult tactics. A soft cry came from Lucas's room. Eli moved to get up, but I touched his arm. I'll go. In the dim nursery, Lucas reached for me from his crib, tear-streaked face breaking my heart. I lifted him, breathing in his baby-sweet scent, remembering how Caleb had reacted when I'd suggested having children. Too much responsibility, he'd said. We need to focus on my career. Now I understood why. My phone vibrated, a text from Greg, Caleb's former mentor, need to talk. Urgent. Meet me at the university library. Eli, I called softly. Can you watch Lucas? Something's come up. Greg waited in the rare books section, looking older than I remembered. His hands trembled as he pulled out a leather-bound journal. I found this in my office, he said. It's from 1997, when Caleb was my graduate assistant. I opened it. Pages of neat handwriting detailed research subjects, female students, their vulnerabilities, their pressure points. Rosa's name appeared early on. He was perfecting his technique, I whispered. Even then. I should have seen it. Greg's voice cracked. But he was brilliant, charismatic. I thought. He stopped abruptly, eyes fixing on something behind me. I turned. A campus security guard stood there, radio in hand. Professor Thompson, he said. You're in violation of the restraining order. What restraining order? The one your husband filed this morning. You need to come with me. Greg stepped forward. There must be some mistake. It's okay, I said, clutching the journal. Call Eli. Tell him what happened. At the campus police station, Officer Chen slid a document across her desk. The restraining order cited erratic behavior and threatening communications. Attached were screenshots of texts I'd never sent. Emails I'd never written. He fabricated these, I said. Maybe so, Chen replied, but until a judge says otherwise, you can't come within 500 feet of him or the retreat property. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Checkmate, darling. Did you really think I wouldn't be prepared? See. Another buzz. A photo appeared, Lucas's empty crib, taken minutes ago. My blood froze. I need to make a call. In the hallway, I dialed Eli with shaking fingers. No answer. Then Natalie. Nothing. A final text from Caleb, you have a choice, Vera. Drop everything, the accusations, the evidence, all of it, or you'll never see our godson again. You have 1 hour. I stared at the words until they blurred. Caleb had always been 3 steps ahead, always calculating. But he'd made one crucial mistake. Lucas wasn't just my godson. He was my reason for ensuring Caleb could never hurt anyone again. I dialed Rosa's number. It's happening, I said when she answered. Plan B. Call the others. And Rosa. Make sure Sarah brings those files from the university's security system. What about Lucas? I thought of those vacant-faced women in the surveillance photos. Of Angela Martinez, trapped in Caleb's web. Of Rosa, carrying her scars for 15 years. He thinks he's taking everything from me, I said. Let's show him what it really means to lose everything. I hung up and walked back to Officer Chen's desk, forcing my voice to stay steady. I'd like to report a kidnapping. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. The retreat's main lodge loomed before me, all rustic wood and false serenity. 2 of Caleb's followers, seekers, he called them, flanked me as I climbed the steps. Their grip on my arms was gentle but firm, a perfect metaphor for his whole operation. Sister Vera, one murmured, he's waiting in the meditation room. Of course he was. Everything choreographed, just like always. Through the windows, I caught glimpses of women in white linen, moving like ghosts between buildings. Angela Martinez sat cross-legged in the garden, staring at nothing. My hand tightened around Greg's journal in my pocket. The meditation room door opened. Caleb stood there, backlit like some cut-rate messiah. Darling, he said, spreading his arms. Welcome home. Where's Lucas? Safe. With Natalie. His smile didn't reach his eyes. She's quite receptive to our teachings, actually. Amazing what a few carefully chosen words can accomplish. The implications hit like a punch. Natalie wasn't answering calls because she was here, under his influence. Just like Angela. Just like all of them. Your choice, he prompted. I want to see Lucas first. After you surrender the evidence. All of it. A commotion outside drew his attention. Through the window, I saw Greg stumbling up the path, looking desperate. Right on schedule. What's he doing here? Caleb's mask slipped slightly. Probably looking for his journal. I pulled it from my pocket. Interesting reading. Very. Methodical. His eyes narrowed. Give it to me. Everything you've built here, it's just a larger version of what you did to Rosa, isn't it? Find the vulnerable ones, isolate them, make them dependent. I'm helping them find purpose. Like you helped Angela find purpose. Something dark flashed across his face. She was unstable. They all were, until I showed them the path. The path to what? Being your personal cult. Watch your tone. His voice dropped dangerously. Remember who has the power here. A woman's scream pierced the air. We both turned. In the garden, Rosa stood over Angela's crumpled form. Help! Rosa shouted. She's not breathing. Caleb moved toward the door. I blocked his path. Your choice, I echoed his words. Let me see Lucas, or I start making phone calls. The police are already watching this place. One word from me. You're bluffing. Try me. More commotion outside. Greg had reached the garden, was kneeling beside Angela. Other women gathered, their programmed serenity cracking. Tick-tock, I said. Caleb's jaw clenched. Follow me. He led me to a cabin at the compound's edge. Inside, Natalie sat with Lucas, her eyes glazed but clearing slightly at my entrance. Vera? She blinked rapidly. What's happening? It's okay, I said, not taking my eyes off Caleb. Everything's going to be okay. Lucas reached for me. I took him, breathing in his familiar scent. Now the evidence, Caleb demanded. I smiled. Check your phone. He pulled it out, face darkening as messages flooded in. Every woman he'd ever manipulated, every piece of evidence we'd gathered, being sent to the university board, the police, the media. All time-stamped for automatic release unless I entered a code every hour. You can't. I already did. I backed toward the door with Lucas. Angela's fine, by the way. Just a little acting from Rosa. But the police response time to a medical emergency. About 3 minutes. Sirens wailed in the distance. You're just like them, he snarled. Weak, needing guidance. No, Caleb. I'm exactly what you made me, someone who learned to play the long game. His followers were emerging from their trances now, watching through windows as police cars appeared on the horizon. Natalie, I called softly. Time to go home. She stood shakily, moving toward us as Caleb's carefully constructed world began to crumble around him. This isn't over, he warned. You're right. I shifted Lucas to my hip. It's just beginning. The first police car crested the hill as we walked away, leaving Caleb to face the storm he'd created, one calculated manipulation at a time. The interrogation room's fluorescent lights made everything look sickly, unreal. Detective Martinez, no relation to Angela, placed a stack of photos in front of me. Crime scene images from the retreat. 3 bodies, he said flatly. Found buried behind the meditation cabin. All former students. My stomach lurched. That's impossible. We were watching him. For 6 weeks. These deaths date back 2 years. He slid forward another photo, Caleb being led away in handcuffs, that serene smile still on his face. Your husband's looking at multiple homicide charges. And you? You're looking at obstruction of justice. I was trying to help those women. By running a vigilante operation. By interfering with an ongoing investigation. He leaned forward. We've been building this case for months. Your little revenge scheme nearly destroyed years of work. The door opened. Eli stepped in, still in uniform. His face was carved from stone. They're processing Natalie now, he said quietly. The drugs in her system. She's not doing well. I closed my eyes. Lucas. Safe. With my sister. He wouldn't look at me. The department's reviewing my involvement. I'll probably lose my badge. Eli, I never meant. Save it. His voice cracked slightly. You used me. Used my position to get information. Put our son at risk. He was never in danger. No. He finally met my gaze. You brought a 3-year-old into a compound where women were being murdered. Where your best friend was being drugged. All for what? To prove you weren't as blind as everyone thought. To show Caleb you could play his game. The truth hit like a physical blow. I had become exactly what I was fighting against, someone so focused on control, on winning, that I'd lost sight of the casualties. Detective Martinez cleared his throat. Dr. Matthews called. The dental clinic's board is meeting tomorrow about your license. Of course. My whole life, unraveling thread by thread. I want to see him, I said. Your husband. Not happening. Please. I need to understand. Understand what? Eli's voice was ice. How he manipulated people. Destroyed lives. Look in a mirror, Vera. You're more like him than you think. He walked out, leaving me with the photos of 3 women I'd never known existed. 3 women I might have saved if I'd gone to the police instead of playing detective. My phone buzzed, they hadn't confiscated it yet. A text from Rosa, Angela's talking. Really talking. Says there are more bodies. Another buzz. An email from the university board, announcing a formal investigation into Greg's involvement. His career, destroyed because I'd dragged him into this. The final message was from an unknown number. A video link. With trembling fingers, I opened it. Caleb's face filled the screen, recorded before his arrest. Hello, darling. If you're watching this, everything has gone according to plan. You always were predictable, so desperate to prove yourself, to show everyone you weren't just the quiet, supportive wife. Did you enjoy playing detective? Making your little charts and gathering your evidence? His smile widened. Thank you for finding those bodies for me. I was getting worried they'd never be discovered. And now? Now everyone sees you exactly as I always did, reckless, obsessed, dangerous. Just like me. The video ended. Detective Martinez watched me with a mixture of pity and disgust. We'll need your formal statement, he said. About everything. I stared at the photos of the dead women, at my distorted reflection in the interrogation room window. Caleb was right. I'd become exactly what he wanted, a mirror of his own obsession, his own capacity for destruction. I'll tell you everything, I whispered. About the bodies, the manipulation, all of it. But first, I need you to understand something. What's that? There's one more secret. One he thinks only he knows. I met the detective's eyes. And it's going to destroy him completely. Because Caleb had taught me well, too well. He'd shown me that the best revenge isn't quick or clean. It's patient. Methodical. And most importantly, it's devastating. Just like the truth I'd been saving for exactly this moment. The prison visiting room smelled of industrial cleaner and despair. Caleb sat across from me, orange jumpsuit stark against his pale skin, that familiar serene smile still in place. Come to gloat, darling. I placed Greg's journal on the table between us. No. I came to return this. His eyes flickered to the leather-bound book. Ah. My early work. Quite amateur, looking back. 3 bodies wasn't amateur. 4, actually. His smile widened slightly. But you knew that already, didn't you? I slid a photograph across the table. A younger Caleb, standing beside a woman with my face, my build, my coloring. My sister, I said quietly. The one who disappeared 15 years ago. The reason I applied to work at your university's dental clinic. The smile faltered, just for a moment. You never wondered why I looked so familiar. My voice remained steady. Why I worked so hard to get your attention. To become exactly the kind of quiet, supportive wife you wanted. Vera. Sarah was her name. But you knew her as Patient Zero in your journal. Your first experiment in control. His hands, always so steady, began to tremble slightly. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can. Sarah kept records too. Hidden where you'd never think to look, in her dental records. X-rays with dates, photos of injuries, detailed notes about her accidents. All safely stored in the university clinic's archive. That's why you became a dental hygienist. 15 years of waiting. Watching. Learning how you operate. I leaned forward. Did you really think I was just another victim, Caleb? That I didn't plan every step, including my own revenge-obsessed spiral? Detective Martinez entered quietly, standing by the door. The FBI's reopening 20 cold cases, I continued. All women who matched Sarah's description, all connected to universities where you taught. And guess what they found in that journal? DNA. Hair samples. Trophies. Caleb's facade cracked. You're lying. You taught me well, how to manipulate, how to play the long game. The difference is, I had a better reason. I stood. The detective has some questions about Sarah. And the others? They'll never believe you, he snarled. You're unstable, obsessed. No, I'm patient. Like you said in your video message, predictable. You just predicted the wrong pattern. His composure shattered completely. He lunged across the table, hands reaching for my throat. Guards rushed in, restraining him as he screamed accusations, threats, confessions. I watched him break, 15 years of careful planning culminating in this moment. Detective Martinez touched my arm. We got it all on camera, he said softly. The confession, the assault. It's over. In the hallway, Eli waited with Lucas. His face was softer now, understanding replacing judgment. You could have told me, he said. I needed your genuine reactions. Everyone's genuine reactions. It was the only way to make him believe he was winning. Lucas reached for me. I took him, holding him close. The department cleared you, Eli continued. And me. They're calling it an unofficial undercover operation. And Natalie? Home from the hospital. Rosa's with her. He hesitated. She understands why you couldn't warn her. They all do. I thought of Sarah, of all the women who'd never gotten justice. Of the careful path I'd walked between revenge and redemption. What happens now? Eli asked. Through the window, I could see Caleb being led away, his shoulders hunched, his power finally broken. In his journal, he'd written that true control comes from making others see themselves through your eyes. He was right about that. He just never realized he wasn't the only one watching. Now. I kissed Lucas's forehead. Now we go home. And we live. Behind us, Caleb's screams echoed down the corridor, but they held no power anymore. Just the impotent rage of a man who'd finally discovered what it meant to be truly, completely controlled. Sarah would have appreciated the irony. The letter arrived on Sarah's birthday. Prison stationery, Caleb's precise handwriting. I carried it unopened to the cemetery, where fresh flowers marked my sister's finally discovered grave. Natalie found me there, sitting cross-legged on the grass. She looked better, clearer, stronger. The retreat's fog had lifted from her eyes. Rosa said you might be here. She settled beside me. That his? I nodded, turning the envelope over in my hands. You don't have to read it. I know. But I did. One last move in our long game. The paper crackled as I unfolded it. Vera. You were right about one thing, I did recognize you. Not at first, but gradually. Something in the way you watched me, calculated every move. Sarah had that same intensity. I wondered when you'd make your move. 15 years of waiting, watching. I should have recognized the patience of a predator rather than prey. You asked me once why I chose you. The truth is, you chose me. You crafted yourself into my perfect match, knowing I couldn't resist. In doing so, you became exactly what you claimed to hate, a manipulator, a destroyer of lives. We're the same now, you and I. Remember that when you're lying awake at night, telling yourself you did it all for justice. See? Natalie touched my hand. You okay? I let the letter fall onto Sarah's grave, watching the wind catch it. He still thinks this was about revenge. Wasn't it? No. I stood, brushing grass from my jeans. It was about stopping him. Sarah was just the beginning, I had to make sure she was the end, too. My phone buzzed. A text from Eli, Angela's group therapy session went well. She asked about you. Another buzz, Rosa. Jasmine aced her dental boards. We're celebrating at O'Malley's. Coming. They're healing, Natalie said softly. All of them. Because of you. Because of themselves. I looked at Sarah's headstone, at the dates that finally told her complete story. I just helped them find their way back. And what about you? Are you healing? The wind picked up, scattering the letter's pieces like confetti. Somewhere across town, Lucas was probably helping Eli make dinner, standing on his little stool to reach the counter. Later, we'd read stories and talk about his day at preschool, normal moments that felt miraculous after everything. I thought catching him would feel like winning, I said. Like some grand victory. But it just feels quiet. Yeah. I touched Sarah's headstone. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm. Speaking of quiet. Natalie hesitated. Greg called. They're releasing his memoir next month. The whole story, how Caleb manipulated him, how he unknowingly enabled everything. Good. People need to understand how it happens. How someone like Caleb finds the cracks in your life and widens them until you fall through. We walked back to our cars, leaving Sarah's grave and Caleb's scattered words behind. The setting sun painted everything in soft gold, making the world look newer than it was. You never told me, Natalie said as we reached the parking lot. That last secret you mentioned to Detective Martinez, the one that would destroy Caleb completely. What was it? I smiled, thinking of Caleb's face in that prison visiting room, of the moment he realized the truth. There was no secret. I just needed him to think there was, to keep him off balance until he confessed. I unlocked my car. His biggest fear was always that someone else held power over him. So I gave him that fear, let it eat away at him until he cracked. Just like he did to others. Just like that. Natalie hugged me goodbye, and I drove home to my family, to the life I'd built while planning Caleb's destruction. He was right about one thing, I had become like him in some ways. I'd learned to manipulate, to calculate, to wait. But he'd missed the crucial difference, I'd done it all so I could stop being like him. So I could finally lay down the weapon of revenge and pick up something lighter, something that felt more like peace. Even if that peace still echoed, sometimes, with the sound of storms.